Chapter 926. In the past, my senior brother roamed the universe and said that he wanted to comprehend the great Tao of heaven and earth. I borrowed this Vajra bracelet and kept it with me. I didn't expect it to be of great use today. Yuanshi Tianzuan smiled proudly. The Vajra bracelet is a treasure for trapping people and can be said to be indestructible. With the cultivation of the 5 great saints and this treasure, we can definitely capture Yi Xian and suppress him in the depths of the starry sky. Zhuan Ti chimed in. Although the Vajra bracelet is the best treasure for trapping people in the 3 realms, Yi Xian's physical body is unparalleled and his cultivation is comparable to us heavenly path saints. Although this treasure can trap him for a while, it requires the 5 of us to support him with our sacred power every 1,000 years before we can seal him. Zhuan Ti said in a low voice. We can't care so much now. If we allow Yi Xian to be lawless, we saints will lose face. Yuanshi Tianzuan said coldly. The 4 great saints used an extremely short period of time to discuss and finally decided on a method to deal with Yi Xian. In the distance, Tong Tian had been vigilant against the 4 of them. When he saw the Vajra bracelet in Yuanshi Tianzuan's hand, his expression changed drastically. It was as if he had guessed Yuanshi Tianzuan's thoughts. Yi Xian, be careful of the Vajra bracelet. Tong Tian anxiously transmitted his voice. Yi Xian's figure in the boundless starry sky paused slightly, but he continued to chase after Nuwa. The killing techniques in his hands and the dazzling fist radiance in his hands were even more terrifying. Nuwa was in an extremely sorry state. Faced with Yi Xian's pursuit, she could not fight back at all. She could not defeat him and could not escape. Nuwa felt extremely humiliated. However, no one noticed that while Yi Xian was chasing after Nuwa, traces of faintly discernible black thunderbolts intertwined in the starry sky and faintly sealed the space within 1,000,000 miles. Of course, this change was extremely subtle. If one did not pay attention, they would not be able to detect it. Stop! Suddenly, the 4 sages came together and blocked Yi Xian's path. Nuwa finally got a chance to catch her breath and stood together with the 4 sages. Yi Xian, I have to admit that you are indeed very strong. You are qualified to stand on equal footing with us sages. Unfortunately, you are too arrogant and do not put us sages in your eyes at all. Today, I will let you have a taste of the power of the diamond bracelet. Yuanshi Tianzuan said coldly. He suddenly struck out with the diamond bracelet. The bright silver light was extremely dazzling, and it actually imprisoned Yi Xian's body in an instant. This process was extremely smooth, and Yi Xian didn't even have the slightest resistance. Ha! Seeing Yi Xian trapped by the diamond bracelet, Nuwa laughed out loud. Her gaze instantly turned sinister. The 4 sages sealed off the space around them, an extremely terrifying heavenly Tao sacred power was added to the diamond bracelet to prevent Yi Xian from escaping. They only trapped Yi Xian and didn't kill him. They sealed Yi Xian in the depths of space and strengthened the sacred power every 1,000 years. This was the 4 sages' plan. Even though Yi Xian's black armor was a defensive treasure, they didn't kill Yi Xian. Naturally, they ignored the Nirvana armor's defensive power. Yi Xian! Tong Tian roared in shock and anger. He had clearly warned Yi Xian to be careful. Why was Yi Xian still so careless and allowed himself to be imprisoned by the diamond bracelet? Celestial Arch. On the other side of the starry sky, the 33rd Celestial Court was watching the battle through the mysterious heaven mirror. When they saw Yi Xian being imprisoned by the diamond bracelet, a look of panic appeared on everyone's face. Only one person's expression didn't change. Instead, he had a mocking smile on his face. And this person was Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. On the other side of the starry sky, Nuwa strolled in front of Yi Xian. Her dignified and noble face was filled with a sinister look. The way she looked at Yi Xian was even more sinister. Yi Xian, even if I can't kill you, I'll suppress you in the depths of space forever. I'll make sure you're never reincarnated, Nuwa growled hatefully. Today, she had been repeatedly beaten by Yi Xian. She had been beaten up 3 times by Yi Xian. This also made Nuwa the biggest joke among the saints. It was also the shame of her life. How could Nuwa not hate Yi Xian to the extreme? Nuwa laughed loudly and was extremely pleased with herself. Her originally pale face also became rosy. She kept pacing in front of Yi Xian. The way she looked at Yi Xian became even more sinister. At this moment, Yi Xian was imprisoned by the diamond bracelet. His face was expressionless. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He looked at Nuwa with a sinister look in his eyes. Seeing the smile on Yi Xian's face, Nuwa's heart skipped a beat. She put on a strong front and scolded him, "Little dog, you're about to die. You still dare to laugh?" Suddenly turning around, Nuwa bowed to Yuanshi Tianzuan and said, "Senior brothers, junior sister Hudu, this Yi Xian has repeatedly humiliated me. If we just seal him like this, it'll be too easy on him. Why don't we first put him into the primal chaos lightning fire and let him suffer?" Before Nuwa could finish her words, she suddenly stopped because she suddenly saw the 4 saints' faces turn pale. Their pupils contracted to the extreme. It was as if they had seen something extremely terrifying. Not good. Nuwa was only stunned for a moment. She suddenly felt a pair of extremely sinister eyes staring at her from behind. This also made her quickly turn around to look at Yi Xian. However, when she saw the scene behind her, her entire body became numb. Her body and mind trembled to the extreme. What did Nuwa see? Yi Xian was still smiling at her. However, the strange thing was that the Vajra bracelet that was originally trapping him had appeared in his hand. Furthermore, Yi Xian's lips were moving slightly, as if he was chanting some kind of mysterious mantra. "Go!" Yi Xian suddenly roared. His face was filled with cruelty. Before Nuwa could react, the Vajra bracelet in Yi Xian's hand instantly imprisoned Nuwa on the spot. However, this was not the end. Yi Xian suddenly took a step forward and appeared directly in front of the 4 saints. He swept the heaven-destroying halberd in his hand. The heaven-destroying halberd's power exploded from the heaven-destroying halberd. The 4 saints did not dare to take this attack head-on. They immediately retreated 1,000,000 miles. Rumble. The power of the halberd caused the starry sky to explode. Large planets were reduced to dust and smoke, completely blocking the vision of the 4 saints. How is this possible? 1,000,000 miles away, Yuanshi Tianzuan trembled as he muttered. He could not believe what he had just experienced. He could not understand how the Vajra bracelet, which had clearly trapped Yi Xian, ended up like this. It's him. Suddenly, Yuanshi Tianzuan had a flash of inspiration. He abruptly looked towards the 33rd heaven of the celestial court. However, he saw Taisheng Laojun, who was wearing a purple-gold bagua robe, smiling at him. "How dare you, a mere good corpse, ruin the plans of us saints?" Yuanshi Tianzuan flew into a rage. It was as if he had suffered a great humiliation. He wanted nothing more than to charge towards the celestial court alone and destroy Taisheng Laojun's soul. The truth was revealed. Everything was revealed. The 3 saints also finally understood everything. Everyone's expression became extremely ugly. They were saints, yet they had forgotten such a huge oversight. Taisheng Laojun was originally the good corpse of Dao Tianzuan, Lao Tzu. He also had Lao Tzu's memories. The Vajra bracelet was originally something that belonged to Lao Tzu, so Taisheng Laojun naturally knew the chant to activate this treasure. Obviously, Yi Xian had just heard Tongtian's reminder and directly transmitted his voice to Taisheng Laojun. He had obtained the method to activate the Vajra bracelet, which led to the scene just now. Everything was within Yi Xian's calculations. The 4 saints went for wool and came home shorn. It could be said that they had been slapped in the face by Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, you deserve to die." The 4 great saints were furious to the extreme as they charged towards Yi Xian. However, before they could return, what happened next caused them to be completely stunned on the spot. Black lightning sealed the heavens and trapped the earth. Black runes intertwined in the starry sky for millions of miles. Black lightning flashed in the starry sky. The black armor that Yi Xian was wearing actually floated in the starry sky, completely covering millions of miles of the starry sky. What's going on? Bang! The four saints were bewildered. Kundi immediately shot out a beam of worldly sacred light, but the intertwining black lightning instantly annihilated his attack. Separating the heavens and the earth, sealing all directions. Yuanshi Tianzun roared in shock. His face instantly turned pale. He suddenly looked in Yi Xian's direction and saw that Yi Xian's Nirvana battle armor was no longer there. He was panting heavily as sweat rolled down his forehead. He seemed to have lost all his strength. The Nirvana battle armor was indeed very strong and could withstand the attacks of the five saints. However, with Yi Xian's cultivation of the three tribulations of the heavenly Tao, he could only barely use it for a short period of time. He could not wear the Nirvana battle armor for a long period of time. Furthermore, Yi Xian had never planned on wearing the Nirvana battle armor to fight the five saints. This was because he knew very well that if he continued fighting like this, he would only be defeated and flee in the end. In fact, Yi Xian's true goal was to use the Nirvana battle armor to isolate the heavens and the earth. This was also one of his plans. Only by doing so could he resist the four saints for a period of time and give him a chance to kill a saint. Yes, kill a saint. Kill Nuwa and let her soul scatter. Chapter 927. Kill a saint. It was a horrifying word and an impossible thing to achieve. However, Yi Xian was an extremely shrewd person. From the moment he joined the heaven-mending banquet, he had already come up with many plans to kill Nuwa. Whether it was instigating the two demon emperors, unifying the three realms, or even the five saints, everything was under his control. As everyone knew, saints were unkillable. Yi Xian had destroyed Nuwa's body 3 times in a row, proving this terrifying legend. However, as mentioned before, Yi Xian came with the determination to kill Nuwa. He naturally had his own methods to kill Nuwa, but Yi Xian wasn't too sure if they would succeed. Yi Xian was a very smart person. He rarely did things that he wasn't confident in. Although he only had a 50% chance of killing Nuwa, it was enough for him to gamble this time. The only chance to kill Nuwa was the Nirvana armor. Yes, it was the Nirvana armor. The Nirvana armor contained the power of Nirvana. It had once helped him block Yuan Ling's karmic attack. It was a mysterious power that surpassed the grand Tao of heaven and earth. As mentioned before, there were many powers in this world. There were a few mysterious laws that very few people could control. It could even be said that they were impossible to control. The power of time and space, the power of space, the power of chaos, the power of nirvana, the power of karma, the power of destiny, the power of nirvana represented destruction. If Yi Xian could control the power of nirvana, he could definitely kill Nuwa. Unfortunately, Yi Xian couldn't control the power of nirvana. Yi Xian couldn't use the power of nirvana from the nirvana armor either, so it was impossible for him to kill Nuwa with it. Although he couldn't control the power of nirvana, it didn't mean that Yi Xian couldn't kill Nuwa. When he chased after Nuwa with the nirvana armor, he used a formation to seal off the space within 1,000,000 miles. The aura of nirvana from the nirvana armor also isolated the space within 1,000,000 miles. Coincidentally, the heavenly lord of the primordial beginning had used the Vajra bracelet to help Yi Xian, allowing him to trap Nuwa with it. After that, he didn't hesitate to activate the nirvana battle armor to completely isolate the starry sky for millions of kilometers. The formation runes intertwined with the nirvana armor. With the nirvana armor as the formation core, it turned into a starry sky formation that completely isolated the space within 1,000,000 miles. Even if the four saints worked together, they would still need some time to break it. Separating the heavens and earth, sealing off all directions. When the Nirvana armor stretched across the starry sky within 1,000,000 miles turned into a world. The heavenly Tao laws didn't appear, and the heaven and earth powers couldn't enter. Without the augmentation of the heavenly Tao, Nuwa naturally didn't have the ability to revive. This was also the only way for Yi Xian to kill her. Bang! 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 The four saints constantly bombarded the barrier enveloped by the Nirvana armor. The explosions that shook the starry sky for billions of miles rumbled, but they couldn't break the starry sky formation that Yi Xian had painstakingly set up. In the starry sky formation, Yi Xian's face was pale as he panted heavily. Although he had transcended the three tribulations of the heavenly Tao and had a cultivation comparable to a saint, wearing the Nirvana armor for a long period of time put a huge burden on him. Furthermore, he had set up this starry sky formation and used the Nirvana armor as the formation core to isolate the entire world. It had consumed a lot of his cultivation. Huff, huff, huff. Yi Xian panted heavily as his expression gradually turned gloomy. He walked towards Nuwa as a sinister and cold smile quietly curled up on his lips. Nuwa. For the diamond bracelet to become a treasure in the hands of Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu, it was naturally extraordinary. This diamond bracelet firmly imprisoned Nuwa on the spot, and it wouldn't be easy for her to break free from its restraints. Yi Xian, what did you do? Nuwa's face was pale as her eyes trembled. An extremely flustered voice came from her mouth as she looked at Yi Xian with an extremely fearful gaze. Nuwa couldn't be blamed for being in such a state. At this moment, she couldn't feel the augmentation of the heavenly Tao at all, nor could she use any of the heaven and earth powers. This made her extremely fearful. As long as the heavenly Tao doesn't collapse, the saints won't die. Yi Xian strolled in front of Nuwa. His lips curled into a cruel smile as he said these words in a mocking tone. Yi Xian, as long as you stop now, you and I won't interfere with each other's business from now on. Nuwa's saint heart was beating violently. It was as if there was a voice in the unseen world telling her that she would suffer an extremely terrible calamity. This calamity might even take her life. What am I doing? Yi Xian smiled, but his smile was abnormally cold. His eyes were extremely scarlet, as if he had turned into a ferocious beast that was about to devour a person. Of course I'm going to dig out your saint heart and destroy the foundation of your great Tao. Tell me, what else can I do? Yi Xian whispered cruelly, the excitement on his face growing stronger. Poof! Suddenly, under Nuwa's stunned and horrified gaze, Yi Xian raised his hand and abruptly thrust it into Nuwa's heart, causing Nuwa to scream miserably. Blood, blood, golden blood. It was also known as the blood of a saint. The golden blood slowly flowed out of Nuwa's heart while Yi Xian's hand cruelly stirred up Nuwa's heart. When this scene appeared before the eyes of the four saints, they immediately froze as if their souls had frozen. Stop! Yuanshi Tianzuan roared in shock and fury. He violently attacked the celestial formation, but the Nirvana battle robe was simply too invincible. With it as the core of the celestial formation, Yuanshi Tianzuan couldn't break through it no matter how hard he tried. At the same time, on the other side of the starry sky, the quasi-saints of the various orthodoxies were in an uproar. There were even large amounts of gasps coming from them. Everyone looked at Yi Xian with eyes filled with extreme horror. Cruel, ruthless, sinister, merciless, all sorts of negative words were applied to Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian seemed to have become a synonym for terror, causing all the quasi-sages of the various orthodoxies to be terrified to the extreme. Mount Buzhou, the 33rd Celestial Court. The crowd was in an uproar as their roars shook the heavens. Whether it was the immortals or the demon kings, when they saw Yi Xian's palm pierce through Nuwa's heart, all sorts of excited roars soared into the sky. Within the celestial formation, Nuwa was tightly bound by the Vajra bracelet. She was coughing out blood continuously, but her eyes were filled with fear as she looked at Yi Xian, cursing him viciously. Yi Xian, you little dog. I'm a heavenly Tao saint. You can't kill me. Arg! All of a sudden, Nua's curses came to a stop as a tragic cry rang out. Yi Xian's palm was slowly pulled out from Nua's heart, and a resplendent golden saint's heart appeared in Yi Xian's hands. Impossible. Impossible. Nua's 3,000 black strands of hair were in a mess, as if she'd turned into a madwoman. When she saw that Yi Xian had actually dug out her sacred heart, she fell into extreme fear, and her eyes couldn't help but reveal an extremely horrified expression. Chapter 928. The so-called sacred heart was just a general term. It was not something that truly existed. It was the product of a saint's own laws and Tao. But what did Nua see? Yi Xian had personally dug out her sacred heart from her body and materialized her laws and Tao. This made Nua extremely terrified. Pfft! With her sacred heart dug out, Nua's aura suddenly weakened. Blood kept flowing out from the corner of her mouth. Even her eyes were gradually losing focus. A weak aura of death spread out. When this scene appeared, the stars in all directions were dead silent. The four saints' attacks on the galaxy array came to an abrupt halt. They could not believe what they were seeing. What a sacred heart of colored glass! What pure power! In the galaxy array, Yi Xian's eyes were extremely infatuated. It was as if he was admiring a peerless treasure. He exclaimed in admiration. "Give me back my sacred heart!" Nua screamed. Having lost her sacred heart, her cultivation was rapidly draining away. The heavenly path's sacred light was collapsing inch by inch. The fear in her eyes was extremely thick. This is a saint's sacred heart. It was as if Yi Xian did not hear Nua's scream. He was still obsessively studying the sacred heart in his hand. It was as if he had obtained a treasure that he loved so much that he could not bear to part with it. Yi Xian. I beg you. I beg you. Nua coughed up blood. She no longer had the arrogance she used to have. Her face was as pale as paper. She looked at Yi Xian with great pleading and an indescribable fear in her eyes. She was really scared. She was really scared. At this moment, Yi Xian was like a peerless demon in her eyes, and she was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. She could be swallowed by him at any time. The holy light was resplendent and the energy was pure. A sacred heart circulated in Yi Xian's hand, emitting a flawless holy light that contained more than half of Nua's cultivation. If there is anything in this world that can be called a true treasure, I think a saint's sacred heart should be worthy of that title. Yi Xian's expression was extremely strange. His smile became even more cruel. When this scene appeared before everyone's eyes, an extremely frightening feeling grew in everyone's heart. What is he doing? Tao Lord Landia, far away in the galaxy, said in a trembling voice. This Yi Xian can't be. The Immortal of the South Pole's face was pale. What a terrifying person. Zhen Yuanzi clenched his fists, his eyes trembling. Heaven Emperor, he can't be. Kun Peng on the side of the heavenly court said in horror. Inside the starry sky formation, Yi Xian's eyes were still infatuated. The sacred heart rotated in his hand, but a silent terror invaded Nua's mind. No! You dare! Suddenly, Nua screamed. The four saints' eyes turned red and they roared. Even the Tong Tian was stunned. Because what happened next made them fall into a nightmare that they could not wake up from. A colored glass sacred heart was nurtured by Nua's cultivation, and it contained her laws and Tao. However, such a resplendent and flawless sacred heart was actually swallowed by Yi Xian in a single gulp. Tribulation Transcender Transformation. Yi Xian roared to the sky. His expression was cruel and ferocious. He had not used the Tribulation Transcender transformation for a long time. The sacred heart instantly turned into a pure power that poured into his limbs and bones. His aura rose terrifyingly. Not only was his lost cultivation restored in an instant, but his own aura also rose violently. You demon, you will die a horrible death. You will be destroyed by the heavenly Tao. You will never be reincarnated. Nuwa witnessed her body and mind being swallowed by Yi Xian. This kind of mental blow made her feel worse than death. She roared with resentment. I swallowed the sacred heart. My life is in my own hands. Yi Xian laughed cruelly. His roar was deafening. He had swallowed Nuwa's sacred heart. Not only did his cultivation return to its peak state, but his 3 tribulations of the heavenly Tao had also reached the peak. He was only 1 step away from transcending the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Yi Xian, I will make sure you die without a burial place. Yuanshi Tianzuan flew into a rage. He had witnessed this terrible scene with his own eyes. This simply terrified his soul to the extreme. He now regarded Yi Xian as his #1 enemy. It must be known that the sacred heart of a saint was just an illusory substance. It did not have a physical body at all. It only contained the Tao of a saint. However, Yi Xian could actually materialize the sacred heart and swallow it. This was simply unimaginable. As the saying goes, without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. Today, Yi Xian could swallow Nuwa's sacred heart. Would he also be able to swallow the sacred hearts of these saints in the future? Thinking of such a terrifying result, not only was the heavenly sovereign of primordial beginning terrified, the other saints also had the same thought. Not only was there a strong killing intent in their eyes when they looked at Yi Xian, there was also an indescribable fear. The strong are as heavy as a mountain, the weak crawl like a dog. What can you do to me? Yi Xian laughed wildly. He glanced at the 4 saints with contempt. Then, he suddenly turned to look at Nuwa. His cruel and sinister eyes made Nuwa's heart tremble. You. What else do you want? After all, Nuwa was a heavenly saint. Even though her sacred heart had been dug out, she would not die so easily. However, when she saw Yi Xian's cold and cruel eyes, her heart trembled unconsciously. A great terror of life and death attacked her. What else do I want? Yi Xian smiled. His smile was very cruel and very proud. However, in Nuwa's eyes, his smile was indescribably terrifying. It made her want to break free from the confinement of the Vajra bracelet and escape from this terrifying place. What happened in the past is the result of today. In the past, you repeatedly tried to kill me and even humiliated me. You didn't expect today's result, did you? Yi Xian's ferocity was no longer there. He gradually calmed down. He even paced in front of Nuwa as if he was talking about something very casual. However, those who knew Yi Xian knew that every time Yi Xian became calmer, it meant that something extremely terrifying was about to happen. Yi Xian, you can't kill me. I am a heavenly saint. I am an immortal existence. Nuwa trembled as she shouted. She felt more and more afraid. The source of this fear was simply unbearable. The so-called heavenly saint is just a fake saint. In order to become a heavenly saint, you need 2 things. The first is the merit of heaven and earth. The second is the primordial purple qi. Mother Nuwa, am I right? Yi Xian spoke with assurance. His voice grew calmer. Suddenly turning around, Yi Xian looked gently at Nuwa and said, but if I extract the primordial purple qi from your body, I wonder if you will still be a heavenly saint. Silence. Silence. A deathly silence. When Yi Xian finished speaking, not only was Nuwa speechless, even the 4 great saints and the Grand Master of Heaven were stunned on the spot. However, a silent terror was quietly growing within them. Chapter 929. What was the primordial violet vapor? It was a necessary item for one to become a saint through virtue. Without the primordial violet vapor, there would be no heavenly path saints because it was necessary to channel the power of the Tongti on earth. Yi Xian had dug out Nua's sacred heart, which had already left everyone dumbfounded. Now, he even dared to shamelessly claim that he wanted to extract Nua's primordial violet vapor. What kind of joke was this? Whether it was the four saints, the Tongtian emperor, or the quasi-saints of the various orthodoxies, none of them dared to believe their ears. This was an inconceivable thought that emerged in their minds. One had to know that the primordial violet vapor could not be extracted from a saint's body. If it was really possible to extract the primordial violet vapor from a saint's body, these saints would have already thought of doing so, and there would be no such thing as an immortal saint. Of course, no one thought that Yi Xian was joking. This was because if Yi Xian dared to say such a ridiculous thing, he must have his own methods. Their bodies and minds trembled as the surroundings became deathly silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yi Xian. A silent terror filled the boundless starry sky. Even the four saints, the Tongtian emperor, and the others were breathing heavily. Yi Xian, you're delusional. Nuwa screamed in horror. Her sacred heart had been dug out, and she had even witnessed Yi Xian swallow it with her own eyes. This was already a great trauma to her soul. Now that Yi Xian dared to shamelessly claim that he wanted to extract the primordial violet vapor from her body, she was absolutely terrified. Ah! Suddenly, an ear-piercing scream rang out from Nuwa's mouth. Yi Xian's face was ferocious and cruel. The corners of his lips curled into a sinister smile as he pulled Nua's hair and lifted her into the air. Yi Xian, how dare you! Yuanshi Tianzuan roared angrily outside the starry sky array. Nuwa was a dignified heavenly Tao saint, but at this moment, she was being humiliated by Yi Xian like a weak woman. This not only made Nuwa lose face, but also blasphemed the heavenly Tao saints. Unfortunately, in the face of Yuanshi Tianzuan's angry roar, Yi Xian did not react at all. He held tightly onto Nuwa's hair, his fierce eyes flashing with a cruel and sinister light. Bitch, take a good look at this grand formation. It's already completely isolated us from the three dimensions, and the so-called energy of the heaven Tao is unable to support you. Today is the day you die, bitch. Yi Xian was grinning sinisterly. He had been waiting for this day for far too long. When he saw the fear on Nuwa's face, he felt an extremely comfortable sensation in his heart. Beg me, come and beg me not to kill you today. Yi Xian was extremely ferocious, like a madman, as he spoke these words of ridicule. However, his other hand slowly reached towards Nuwa's chest, as if he was really confident in extracting the primordial violet qi from Nuwa's body. Pfft! Ah! Yi Xian's hand pierced through Nuwa's chest, causing a gush of golden saint blood to spurt out. Nuwa also let out an extremely terrified scream, because what little cultivation she had left in her body was rapidly draining away, and the primordial violet qi hidden in her body was actually emerging. Between life and death, great terror was born. When Nuwa felt the strange movement of the primordial violet qi in her body, she was practically scared out of her wits, and the shadow of death enveloped her mind. No, no. I beg you, let me go, don't. Nuwa no longer had the dignity of a saint. Her pupils constricted as she begged bitterly. This was because she was afraid of losing her saint position, and she didn't dare to imagine what would happen to her if she lost the primordial violet qi. Perhaps some people would ask why Nuwa, a dignified saint, had become so lowly at this moment, to the point where she didn't even have the courage to face death. In fact, the reason was very simple. Although Nuwa was a heavenly saint, she had never suffered any calamities since she was born, and rarely fought to the death with others. Moreover, her cultivation had always been smooth sailing, and she had never undergone any trials, just like a flower in a greenhouse. She was one of the heaven's chosen saints. Ever since she followed the will of the heavens and became a saint, no one in this world was worthy of her attention, and it was even more impossible for her to have any great enemies. This had also nurtured her high and mighty attitude. However, today, when Nuwa faced Yi Xian and suffered such a great calamity, her weak mentality was revealed. At this moment, she had already forgotten the so-called dignity of a saint, and was begging for her life like a pitiful woman. Ah! Nua's humble begging came to an abrupt end, and an ear-piercing scream came from her mouth. This was because the primordial violet qi in her body had condensed and was being tightly grasped in Yixian's hand. No, don't! Nua screamed in panic, and her limbs kicked wildly in the air. Her frightened crying continued, and a large amount of tears flowed down from her eyes. Tribulation transcenders devour. Yixian cruelly roared, and wisps of black fog hovered around his body. The roar that shook the heavens resounded through the 33 heavens. Slut, today is the day you fall. Facing Nua's crying and begging, Yixian was completely indifferent. His face was filled with coldness and cruelty. The Tribulation Transcender's Devour was madly activated, causing him to constantly pull at the primordial violet qi in Nua's body, pulling it out bit by bit. Tribulation Transcender's Devour. This was the third heaven-defying technique that Yixian had obtained. He had only used it once against ancestral witch Zhurong, and this was the second time he had used it. This technique had no other function, and its only function was to devour the innate magical abilities of others. The primordial violet qi in Nua's body had already fused with her body, which was equivalent to Nua's innate magical ability. Only the Tribulation Transcender's Devour could take the primordial violet qi out. Originally, Yixian wasn't sure if he could succeed, but when he activated the Tribulation Transcender's Devour, he finally proved one thing. The Tribulation Transcender's Devour could completely extract Nua's primordial violet qi. How bold! Outside the starry sky array, when Yuanshi Tianzuan saw Yixian extracting Nua's primordial violet qi bit by bit, Yuanshi Tianzuan had already gone mad to the extreme. He brought out countless spirit treasures and crazily bombarded the starry sky array. He looked at Yixian with a look of absolute death in his eyes. It wasn't just Yuanshi Tianzuan, the two sages of the West and Hutu were also the same. The three of them were crazily bombarding the starry sky array, using all kinds of spirit treasure techniques without holding back at all. The four sages couldn't be blamed for acting like this. At this moment, their hearts were filled with endless fear, and a peerless killing intent towards Yixian that they had never felt before had been born. Today, Yixian had dug out Nua's sacred heart, and even extracted Nua's primordial violet qi. Wasn't this the same as causing Nua's death? As the saying goes, without the lips, the teeth feel cold. If Yixian succeeded in killing a sage today, breaking this unchanging iron law, then when they faced Yixian in the future, wouldn't they end up like Nua? Chapter 930. The four sages were all smart people. They would never let this happen. Previously, they were still holding back, but when they realized the seriousness of the situation, they no longer held back. Each of them used their strongest power to bombard the starry sky array. Not only did they want to save Nua, but they also wanted to eliminate Yixian, this hidden danger. At this moment, even Tong Tian had a complicated expression. He never thought that Yixian would be so terrifying that he actually had the means to kill sages. Bang bang bang. The four sages were, after all, the four sages. When they completely revealed their cultivation, the entire starry sky array was on the verge of collapse. The Nirvana battle armor floating above the starry sky flickered. It was obvious that the starry sky array would soon be broken. Senior brother Yuanshi, save me. Nua cried for help. Most of the primordial purple vapor in her body had already been extracted by Yixian. An extreme sense of weakness appeared in her mind, and the heavenly Tao Saint power in her body was rapidly draining away. Bitch, you have no chance. Yixian narrowed his eyes and madly activated the Tribulation Transcender's Devour, increasing the speed at which he pulled the primordial purple vapor. This was because he could feel that the starry sky array was about to be broken. He had to completely deal with Nua in this final moment. No. After 3 breaths, a mournful cry of despair came from Nua's mouth. Yi Xian's palm suddenly pulled out of her chest, and a dazzling primordial purple vapor appeared in Yi Xian's hand. Bang! At the same time, the starry sky array was finally broken by the four sages. However, when the four sages saw the primordial purple vapor in Yi Xian's hand, they were stunned on the spot, as if they had lost their souls. Pooh! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Nua's mouth. However, this blood was extremely red, and it no longer had its previous golden brilliance. Nua's entire body softened to the ground, and she looked extremely dispirited. Woo, woo, woo. All of a sudden, the starry sky changed, and the sound of wind rose. The sky outside the 33 heavens dimmed, and the surging sea of stars calmed down. The huge stars stagnated, and black clouds covered the boundless starry sky. Crack! A golden bolt of lightning flashed through the thick dark clouds, and a sorrowful aura spread out. The laws of heaven and earth were collapsing, and the sound of the heavenly Tao was playing, whoosh. The boundless dark clouds were breaking apart, and heavy rain was pouring down. However, the rain was blood-red in color, and it kept dripping into the starry sky. It was even heading toward the lower realm. It wasn't just outside the 33 heavens. The entire three realms were filled with boundless black clouds. The blood-colored rain poured down, and mysterious cries of grief could be heard from the void of the heavens. Saint Fall. This is Saint Fall. Yuanshi Tianzuan allowed the blood-red rain to fall on his body. He stared blankly at the starry sky, and a trembling voice came from his mouth. The legend is true. The fall of the saints caused a great change in the world. The two saints of the West looked pale as they fell into a state of panic. How could this be? Hutu was bathed in the rain of Saint Fall, and she trembled as she murmured. She kept retreating, and the panicked look on her face showed just how terrified she was. The saints had fallen. This was the grief of the heavenly Tao, and it was the world crying. The saints were like the children of the heavenly Tao. When Nua's saint heart was dug out, and the primordial violet vapor was extracted, she was no longer a saint. This was no different from death. Ha! Suddenly, an extremely savage laughter rang out. Yi Xian was laughing madly in the rain of Saint Fall, while Nua was still bound by the Vajra bracelet, and she knelt before him powerlessly. The saints won't die. That's nothing but a great joke. Yi Xian was extremely deranged. He roared at the sky, and his face was filled with excitement and cruelty. Senior brother, save me. While Yi Xian was laughing madly, Nua was extremely weak, and she was crawling on the ground like a dead dog. There was no longer any heavenly Tao saint power around her, and she was trembling as she reached out to Yuanshi Tianzuan. Her eyes were filled with the desire for life. At this moment, Nua's saint heart had been dug out, and her primordial violet vapor had been taken away. She was no longer a saint, and at most, she was an ordinary quasi-saint. Although Nua was still alive, she knew very well that Yi Xian would not let her go. He might take her life in the next moment, and only Yuanshi Tianzuan and the others could save her now. Nua's weak cry for help woke the four saints from their daze, and Yi Xian's maniacal laughter also stopped. However, this time, Yi Xian did not directly kill Nua. Instead, he looked at her with a sinister and playful expression, as if he was waiting to watch a good show. At this moment, Nua was crawling on the ground like a lowly ant, and the Saint Meteor blood rain kept pouring on her body, making her look extremely miserable and pitiful. In the face of Nua's cry for help, Yuanshi Tianzuan frowned slightly, and the expression on his face gradually became indifferent. He even slightly avoided Nua's eyes, and his indifferent voice was heard. Nua, since you have lost your saint position, you are no longer my junior sister. This is your fate, and you should go with the will of heaven. Yuanshi Tianzuan said heartlessly. Senior brother Yuanshi. Nua was stunned, and her delicate fists were slightly clenched, and a self-deprecating expression appeared on her face. Nuwa finally understood that when she lost her saint position, she was nothing in Yuanshi Tianzuan's eyes. Senior brother Jane, senior brother Zhuanti. Nuwa bit her lips and looked at the two saints of the West with difficulty, but the two saints of the West turned their bodies slightly, and did not even look at her, and appeared extremely cold. Everyone below the saint level was just an ant. Nuwa finally understood the meaning of this sentence, and tears kept flowing from her eyes. She stared fixedly at Yuanshi Tianzuan and the others, and a trace of resentment appeared in her eyes. Nuwa, today is the day you die. Let me personally send you on your way. Yi Xian whispered coldly, and a cruel murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He did not soften at all because of Nuwa's pitiful appearance. Rumble. Yi Xian slowly raised his hand, as if he was holding up the heavens and the earth. A destructive power gathered in his hand, as if he was going to kill Nuwa on the spot in the next moment. Dong Huang, I am a member of the demon clan. On account of the fact that we are from the same clan, please help me beg Yi Tiandi to spare my life. When death came, Nuwa was extremely terrified. She cried out loudly, and no longer had the dignity of a saint. She was also begging Dong Huang Tai, because she knew that only Dong Huang Tai could help her now. Nuwa, if you knew this would happen, you would not have done it in the first place. Dong Huang Tai came from the other side of the starry sky, but he looked at Nuwa with a pained expression, and said, You only know that you are a member of the demon clan now, but have you forgotten that the sorcerer clan bullied our clan? Dijun and I begged you to save the demon clan, but have you ever cared about your clan? I. Nuwa was stunned on the spot, and her eyes were filled with despair. Nuwa finally understood her situation, and this made her feel completely hopeless. She knew that she would definitely die today, and there was no way she could escape from Yi Xian's hands. What you sowed in the past, you reap today. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Today, I will send you on your way. Rumble. The starry sky exploded, and the palm covered the sky. Yi Xian's emotionless voice was heard, and the giant palm came down on Nuwa. This made Nuwa smile sadly, and she slowly closed her eyes, waiting for death to come. Yi Tiandi, can you give me some face and spare my sister's life for the time being? Suddenly, an ancient voice sounded. Before Yi Xian could kill Nuwa with a palm, a giant golden palm blocked in front of Nuwa, saving Nuwa's life. Chapter 931. Rumble. The starry sky shook as sutras were chanted. Strands of mysterious power interweaved in the starry sky, and a stalwart figure walked out from the void. Dong, dong, dong. Like the chanting of ancient ancestors, like the mournful voices of all living things, this figure had the vicissitudes of life. Strands of gentle aura surrounded his body, giving people the feeling of spring wind and rain. However, this was not the most important thing. The appearance of this illusory figure caused the entire starry sky to freeze. An indescribable mysterious power was fused into his aura that was like the spring wind and rain, giving people the feeling that he was like the heavens and the earth. Brother! A sorrowful cry rang out. Nuwa's eyes were filled with tears as she looked up at the sky and sobbed at the mysterious figure. It was as though she had finally met the person closest to her and finally found the home of her soul. Little sister, if you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? If you focused on cultivation and did not provoke the strife of the three realms, how could you have suffered such a great calamity today? The figure walked down from the starry sky and came to Nuwa's side with a sigh. Brother, I know I was wrong. Nuwa was like a helpless little girl. Her face was already covered in tears. She opened her arms and wanted to hug the person in front of her, but something strange happened. Nuwa's arms passed through the figure's body. The figure seemed to exist, but it was like a mass of air and did not have a physical body at all. Brother, you. Nuwa was stunned on the spot. She let out a murmur, and then a bitter look appeared on her face. It was as if she had understood something at this moment. I am the human race's heavenly emperor, and I will forever suppress the fate of the human race. This is only one of my incarnations. You and I were able to meet again because I couldn't bear to see your soul disperse and die. The figure that came was illusory, and a sigh came from his mouth. At this moment, he finally turned to look at Yi Xian. His illusory figure gradually solidified at this moment, revealing his original appearance. He had a head of black hair, bronze skin, and a face that seemed to be carved by a knife was filled with resoluteness. His eyes were like stars, and contained a sense of vicissitudes of life. Heavenly Emperor Fuxi. Suddenly, Tong Tian frowned and directly revealed the identity of the person who had come. Yuanshi Tianzuan and the others also held their breaths, but the corners of their mouths curved into a playful smile. Heavenly Emperor Fuxi, Earthly Emperor Shenong, and Human Emperor Xianyuan. The three of them were ancient gods and were known as the three sovereigns of the human race. Fuxi was the heavenly sovereign of the human race. His other identity was also Nuwa's brother. Of course, Fuxi was not a quasi-saint. To be exact, he was also a saint. However, he was different from a heavenly Tao saint because he was a different type of Tao. In the past, Tao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu established a sect for the human race and became saints through merit. In order to suppress the destiny of the human race and prevent it from dissipating, the three sovereigns of the human race paid the price of never being able to walk out of the fire cloud cave to achieve the Tao. The three sovereigns of the human race were supported by the power of the human race. Although they were not heavenly Tao saints, their cultivation bases were not weaker than that of a saint. Their only flaw was that they could never walk out of the fire cloud cave because once they left, the destiny of the human race would disappear. No one knew where the fire cloud cave was because it was where the destiny of the human race was. The human race was also the spirit of the world and the true protagonist of the three realms. Whether it was demons or shamans, they seemed to be stronger than the human race, but they had always been in endless battles. On the other hand, the human race had a long history, and they existed in every corner. This was the terrifying part of destiny. The human race was the leader of the mortal world, and most of the souls of the dead in the underworld were also from the human race. Even Yi Xian's celestial court was from various orthodoxies, and half of them were from the human race. Where did immortals come from? Most of them were from the human race. The operation of the three realms and the so-called cycle of the heavenly Tao could not be separated from the human race. As one of the three sovereigns of the human race, Fuxi was naturally terrifying. Fuxi was terrifying not because of his cultivation base, but because of the power of the human race that supported him. This power of the human race gathered the faith of all living beings of the human race, and even heavenly Tao saints did not dare to be disrespectful. The three sovereigns of the human race had another name, which was the three saints of the fire cloud. That's right, it was the three saints of the fire cloud. The three sovereigns of the human race were on par with the saints. They were different from the saints, and their only flaw was that they could never walk out of the fire cloud cave, so they were not known by the outside world. Today, Nuwa was about to die tragically in Yi Xian's hands. How could Fuxi bear to watch his sister die tragically? He finally revealed his Dharma idol, hoping to save his sister's life. Yi Tiandi, please be merciful and let my sister live. Fuxi bowed. He lowered his posture to the extreme and showed great humility. Brother? Looking at Fuxi's humble appearance, Nuwa bit her lips tightly, and tears kept appearing in her eyes. She knew that her brother was a very proud person, but today, he gave up his dignity to beg Yi Xian for her. Self-blame, shame, and deep regret. All kinds of complicated emotions grew in Nuwa's heart. She did not expect that when she was about to reach the end of her life, everyone would turn their backs on her, and only her brother would stand in front of her. Heavenly Emperor Fuxi. Looking at Fuxi's humble appearance, Yi Xian frowned slightly, and his voice was extremely low. He was very strong, far stronger than Nuwa. If Yi Xian was not wrong, Fuxi's cultivation base was on par with Yuanshi Tianzuan's, and even stronger than him. As expected, the heavenly emperor of the human race is worthy of his reputation. However, Nuwa and I will not rest until one of us is dead. Today, even if you plead for mercy, she will definitely not leave here alive. Suddenly, Yi Xian spoke coldly, directly refuting Fuxi's request, and did not give Fuxi any face. Fuxi seemed to have expected Yi Xian's rejection. His face was slightly bitter, but he still bowed to Yi Xian and said, Yi Tiandi, you are the master of the three realms, and Nuwa has lost her sainthood. From now on, she will no longer be an obstacle to you. Let me take her back to the Fire Cloud Cave. I can also promise the Heavenly Emperor that she will never take half a step out of the Fire Cloud Cave. Yi Tiandi, please agree. Although Fuxi was the Heavenly Emperor of the human race, he was becoming more and more humble. He only hoped to turn hostility into friendship and protect Nuwa's life, even if he had to throw away his dignity. Logically speaking, as the Heavenly Emperor of the human race, Yi Xian would definitely give face to Fuxi when he begged so humbly. Moreover, as Fuxi said, Nuwa was no longer a threat to him. Yi Xian had no reason to offend Fuxi for a Nuwa. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was extremely determined to kill Nuwa. This was because Yi Xian deeply understood that if he and Nuwa switched places today, Nuwa would definitely not let him live. She would definitely kill him. Kindness to the enemy was cruelty to oneself. Yi Xian had always believed in this saying, and he had been able to reach where he was today by relying on his decisiveness to kill. If he had the slightest bit of mercy in his heart, he would have died countless times already. Chapter 932. Moreover, Yi Xian had never forgotten that he'd been bullied by Nuwa multiple times in the past and had almost died at her hands several times. During the Battle of the Celestial Court, many of his subordinates died tragically. Xue Jie was even killed by Nuwa in order to save him. If Yi Xian spared Nuwa's life today, how would he answer to his dead subordinates? How would he comfort Xue Jie's soul in heaven? If he spared Nuwa's life just because of Fuxi's pleas, how would he face the 33rd Celestial Court? Wouldn't he disappoint his subordinates? Fuxi, you are not that important in my eyes. Today, no matter who pleads for mercy, Nuwa must die. Yi Xian said emotionlessly. He was determined to kill Nuwa. This made Fuxi frown. He did not expect Yi Xian to be so insistent. I am Nuwa's brother. I will not let you kill her. Fuxi shook his head slowly. Ha! Yi Xian laughed coldly. The heaven-destroying halberd pierced through the sky and pointed at Fuxi. You think you can save her with just your Dharma state? Boom boom boom. Suddenly, the starry sky trembled. The light of humanity shone and a fiery cloud appeared out of nowhere. Two majestic figures walked out of the cloud and stood in front of Fuxi. Yi Tiandi, if you can spare Nuwa's life, the three sovereigns of the human race will owe you a favor. The two figures spoke. The power of humanity filled the sky and the mysterious chanting of ancient people could be heard. Emperor of Earth Shenong, Emperor of Human Xianyuan. Yuanshi Tianzuan whispered in shock. The three sovereigns of the human race, this. Tongtian's expression changed drastically. One Fuxi was already a tough nut to crack, and now, two more Fuxi appeared at the same time. The three sovereigns of the human race had achieved the Tao in a different way. Although they were not heavenly path saints, with the support of the human Tao, they were definitely not inferior to saints. Today, the three sovereigns of the human race had appeared together to plead for Nuwa. This was simply unimaginable. The three sovereigns of the human race? The three sages of Fire Cloud? Are you threatening this emperor? Yi Xian said coldly. Strands of murderous aura emanated from him, proving that monstrous killing intent had already risen in Yi Xian's heart. Celestial Emperor Yi, although you are the master of the three realms and have achieved the Tao in a different way, you are still a member of the human race. Could it be that you really can't give the three of us some face? Human Emperor Xian Yuan's voice was heavy and dignified. Unfortunately, In the face of human Emperor Xian Yuan's questioning, Yi Xian did not respond. This was because he was not from the three realms. Although he was from the human race, he had nothing to do with the three sovereigns of the human race. This was because he was from Earth. Don't say that I look down on you. At this moment, you are only Dharma idols. Your real bodies are still in the fire cloud cave. How dare you three Dharma idols stop me? Yi Xian said coldly. The three sovereigns of the human race could never walk out of the fire cloud cave. Yi Xian knew very well that although the three sovereigns of the human race had achieved the Tao in a different way and had the support of the human race's power, their cultivation was not weaker than that of a heavenly sage. However, their biggest disadvantage was that they could never walk out of the fire cloud cave. How could they stop Yi Xian? Yi Tiandi, we have no intention of being enemies with you. Today, we just want to save Nua's life. Although it is as you said, that we cannot walk out of the fire cloud cave and can't stop you, Yi Tiandi, it does not mean that Nua will die in your hands. Earth Emperor Shenong sighed. Hearing Earth Emperor Shenong's words, Yi Xian was stunned. Then, his expression changed drastically. It was as if he had sensed something and suddenly looked into the depths of the starry sky. However, what happened next completely made Yi Xian become extremely gloomy. His eyes flashed with an extremely sinister light. The boundless sea of stars was churning, and the vast starry sky was shaking. Purple gas was vast and mighty, and the laws of heaven and earth were calm. A long river of purple gas traversed the starry sky. In the vast and mighty purple gas, a green ox was walking over with 4 hooves. On the back of the green ox was a white-haired Taoist. Senior Lao Tzu. Dao Tianzuan. The head of the 3 pure ones, Lao Tzu. Drip, drip, drip. The green ox carrying the Taoist seemed to be moving slowly, but in the blink of an eye, it appeared above the starry sky. It was also at this moment that the heavenly sages exclaimed in shock. Yuanshi greets Senior. This poor monk greets Dao Tianzuan. Junior sage Hutu greets Senior Lao Tzu. The 4 sages walked forward and bowed to Dao Tianzuan, Lao Tzu. The 3 sovereigns of the human race also bowed to Lao Tzu. Taoist brother, you established your sect on behalf of the human race. Today, we, the 3 sovereigns of the human race, thank you for saving Nua. Fuxi bowed 3 times to Lao Tzu. The head of the 3 pure ones, Dao Tianzuan, was Lao Tzu, also known as Li Er. Pangu created the heavens and Hung Jun preached the Tao. If there was anyone in the world who was the strongest besides Hung Jun, it would be Dao Tianzuan, Lao Tzu. Dressed in a green robe, Lao Tzu's hair and beard were white. There was no aura around him, nor was there any heavenly Tao saint power. However, when one looked at him, it was as if he was the embodiment of the Tao. Lao Tzu was the Tao, and the Tao was Lao Tzu. What was the Tao? At this moment, Lao Tzu fully explained the profound meaning of the Tao. This feeling was indescribable. Just Lao Tzu's appearance seemed to represent the Tao. It gave people an irresistible feeling. It was as if everything in front of him would pale in comparison. Li Er. This was the first time Yi Xian felt pressure. It was an indescribable pressure. It was all because his father, who was riding on the green ox, actually gave him a feeling as if he was looking up at a tall mountain. Yi Xian felt as if he was looking at a huge mountain. He felt as if he was an extremely small existence. This extremely uncomfortable feeling was simply unbearable for Yi Xian. This humble Taoist is Li Er. Greetings, Yi Dao Yu. Dao Tianzuan walked down from the green ox. He had a benevolent look and a smile on his face as he bowed to Yi Xian. There was no trace of arrogance on his face. What a great leader of the 3 pure ones. What a great Dao Tianzuan. Yi Xian smiled. He really smiled. However, his smile was very cold. He was like a ferocious beast that was about to devour a person. His eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty color. This is the cycle of karma. Nuwa's tribulation is her destiny. However, she has already lost her sage position. Why not let her live? Lao Tzu said softly. When Lao Tzu finished speaking, the four sages faintly surrounded Yi Xian. Yuanshi Tianzuan's eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely gloomy expression. The three sovereigns of the human race, the four sages, and a Dao Tianzuan. Yi Xian smiled coldly and said, "You guys really think highly of me, Yi Xian. You actually put on such a grand display. Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. Although this humble Taoist is the leader of the three pure ones, I have no intention of making things difficult for you. However, Nuwa's life is not yet time for her to die. I hope fellow Taoist can understand." Lao Tzu let out a long and hoarse sigh. "Yi Xian, it's time to stop. Otherwise, you and I will be in big trouble today." Tong Tian quietly appeared beside Yi Xian and secretly transmitted his voice to him. However, when he looked at Lao Tzu, great fear flashed across his eyes. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond to Tong Tian's warning. His expression gradually calmed down. However, he looked at Lao Tzu with an unfathomable expression. "I heard that the one qi into three pure ones technique is an unparalleled technique. Today, Yi Xian wants to experience it. I wonder if Dao Tianzuan can help me." Chapter 933. Silence, silence, extreme silence. When Yi Xian finished speaking, everyone looked at him with astonishment. Yuanshi Tianzuan sneered and looked at Yi Xian as if he was looking at a dead man. If there was a technique that could be said to be the best in the world, it would be Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu's one qi into three pure ones. The so-called one qi into three pure ones did not refer to the three pure ones, but a kind of external avatar technique. This technique was extremely terrifying. It could split into three, and each avatar had the full cultivation of the original body. Lao Tzu had never used this technique in the investiture of the Gods' War. This technique only existed in legends, and it was Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu's trump card. Even Tong Tian and Yuanshi Tianzuan had only glanced at the one qi into three pure ones. In the past, the three of them were as close as brothers. Yuanshi Tianzuan and Tong Tian had longed for this technique, but Lao Tzu had sternly refused. This also proved how important the one qi into three pure ones was to Lao Tzu. "Yi Xian, you're really ridiculous. You want to see the one qi into three pure ones?" Yuanshi Tianzuan walked out with the Pangu banner in his hand. The chaotic qi shook the starry sky, and the heavenly Tao's sacred light filled the sky. He looked at Yi Xian with great murderous intent. "Junior brother, please wait." Suddenly, before Yuanshi Tianzuan could make a move, Lao Tzu spoke gently. Yuanshi Tianzuan was slightly startled. He looked at Lao Tzu with a puzzled expression. Since fellow Taoist Yi wants to spar with this humble Taoist will naturally not refuse. However, this humble Taoist hopes that after we spar, this humble Taoist will spare junior sister Nuwa's life today. Lao Tzu's voice was slightly hoarse, but he still had a smile on his face. Although he was the leader of the three pure ones, he did not reveal any overbearing aura. "All right." Yi Xian lightly nodded his head. He slightly raised the heavenly execution halberd and pointed it at Laozi from afar. Strands of primal chaos mist rose around him, and Yi Xian's essence, energy, and spirit rose to the peak. The black holy light that exploded through the starry sky wreaked havoc around him. "Fellow, please." In the face of Yi Xian's terrifying aura, Lao Tzu was still smiling. He was extremely calm, as if he was catching up with an old friend whom he had not seen for many years. As if facing a great enemy, the entire world fell silent. Yi Xian did not make a move immediately, because Lao Tzu gave him an extremely mysterious feeling. He also gave him a formless pressure. The spring wind and rain were the cries of the heavenly Tao. Yi Xian could clearly see that Lao Tzu was right in front of him, but he was unable to capture his opponent's aura. This feeling made Yi Xian extremely uncomfortable, and he knew that there was a huge gap between him and his opponent. If Tong Tian and Yuanzhi Tianzuan's cultivation was one level higher than his, then Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu's cultivation was much stronger than Yuanzhi Tianzuan's and the others. To make a simple comparison, Yi Xian had just passed the 3 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Yuanzhi Tianzuan and Tongtian's cultivation was equivalent to the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, and Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu's cultivation was most likely equivalent to the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Although this was only Yi Xian's guess, Yi Xian was very sure that his guess was not too far off. Nirvana Battle Suit. Suddenly, Yi Xian waved his hand to summon the Nirvana Battle Suit. He had just devoured Nua's Sacred Heart and recovered his cultivation, allowing him to climb to the peak of the 3 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. He could use the Nirvana Battle Suit to fight Lao Tzu again, and it was also his life-saving item. Roar. Like a primordial beast roaring angrily, like the ancient galaxy shaking, terrifying black lightning flashed on the Nirvana Battle Suit, instantly covering Yi Xian's body. Boom! Like a thunderclap from the 9th heaven, like the light of dawn blooming, Yi Xian did not waste any time and attacked Lao Tzu with his halberd. The stars within millions of miles cracked, proving how terrifying Yi Xian's attack was. Clang! The sound of metal clashing shook everyone's eardrums. Lao Tzu's Taoist robe fluttered as he pointed a finger at the heaven's punishing halberd. He easily caught Yi Xian's attack, preventing Yi Xian from moving an inch forward. The world was in an uproar, and everyone was shocked. When this scene appeared, everyone was discussing in shock. They did not expect this to be the result of the two's attack. In everyone's eyes, Yi Xian was terrifyingly powerful, but now his attack was easily caught by Lao Tzu. This made everyone look at Lao Tzu with reverence. The head of the 3 pure ones, Dao Tianzuan, the number 1 person under Hung Jun. Today, they witnessed the legend of Lao Tzu and felt his strength. Little friend, your evil aura is too strong. Although you achieved the Tao in a different way, you did not understand the will of the heavens. Let's spar today. Why don't we stop? Clang! Lao Tzu waved his sleeves lightly, and as heavy as the heavens, he sent Yi Xian and the heavens punishing halberd flying. He still had a smile on his face, but what happened next shocked everyone. Countless burning gazes focused on him. The Tao can be Tao, the extraordinary Tao, the name can be named, the extraordinary name, the nameless, the beginning of heaven and earth, the name, the mother of all things. Lao Tzu was reciting the scriptures. This was the Tao Te Ching that he created. It could be said to be the general outline of the Tao. At this moment, when Lao Tzu recited it, it completely explained his understanding of the Tao. It also made everyone's spirit feel an indescribable sublimation, and their own cultivation level seemed to have improved slightly. However, this was not the reason why everyone was so excited. It was because Lao Tzu's body had separated into 2 identical people, and he had used the legendary I Chi turning 3 pure ones. The mother of all things, the beginning of heaven and earth. This is called the I Chi turning 3 pure ones. Please enlighten me. The 3 Dao Tianzuans spoke at the same time. It was impossible to tell which one was the real body and which one was the doppelganger. It was just that the boundless starry sky was filled with mighty purple gas, and the rolling heavenly power filled the 3 realms. It made people feel like they were worshipping Lao Tzu. Yi Xian, retreat quickly. Tong Tian transmitted his voice in shock. His eyes were already faintly red, and there was great anxiety in his eyes. If there was anyone in this world who understood Lao Tzu the most, it was without a doubt Tong Tian and Yuanzhi Tianzuan, who were also part of the 3 pure ones. At this moment, Lao Tzu had used the I Chi turning 3 pure ones technique. Yi Xian was very likely to die at the hands of Lao Tzu. This also made Tong Tian quickly advise Yi Xian to avoid Lao Tzu's sharp edge. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond to Tongtian's advice at all. It was even more impossible for him to compromise with Lao Tzu. It was not that Yi Xian was rash and stubborn. He was also not a reckless person. It was just that he had cultivated for almost 200,000 years. Now that he had passed the 3 tribulations of the heavenly Tao with great difficulty and had a cultivation comparable to a saint, he did not want to hide anymore. Even if he was facing the leader of the 3 pure ones, he wanted to sublimate himself and fight with him. Kill! The darkness was boundless, and his roar shattered the starry sky. Yi Xian took a step forward, and the heaven-destroying halberd swung around the entire starry sky. The Nirvana battle armor flashed with black lightning. In an instant, he arrived in front of Lao Tzu. Chapter 934. Clang! 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 The heaven-destroying halberd turned into a sky full of light and shadows. The immortal taboo great technique surged violently. Even the inverse immortal formation that had not been used for a long time was unleashed by Yi Xian. He instantly clashed with Lao Tzu. Bang! 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 The heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. Lao Tzu's 1 qi turning into 3 pure ones was not as simple as 1 plus 1. It nurtured an unparalleled terror that instantly clashed with Yi Xian. Billions of miles of the starry sky collapsed. The boundless sea of stars collapsed. Large stars turned into ashes. The 4 light shadows were completely submerged in a huge glow. No one could clearly see the scene of the battle between the 2. All directions were silent. Everyone was watching. Explosions kept coming from the depths of the starry sky. The 33 levels of heaven shook violently, proving how terrifying this battle was. No one could clearly see how far this battle had progressed because the power that Laozi and Yi Xian had released was too terrifying, isolating everyone from prying eyes. Just the aftermath of the battle between the 2 of them was enough to intimidate everyone. Time passed slowly. After 3 days and 3 nights, a loud explosion came from the starry sky. The 2 figures shot back from the starry sky. Bang! The starry sky collapsed and exploded. Yi Xian's blood qi surged. Blood qi filled the sky from the top of his head. Strands of black lightning circled around his body. He looked calmly in front of him. On the other hand, Lao Tzu's 1 qi turning into 3 pure ones had disappeared. He was smiling at Yi Xian on the other side of the starry sky. It was impossible to tell the outcome of the battle between the 2. My friend's cultivation is unfathomable. This black armor is impenetrable. No one can break it. I am extremely impressed. Lao Tzu bowed. Buzz! The void rippled. The heaven-destroying halberd and nirvana armor disappeared and merged back into Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. Yi Xian turned around with a cold expression. He did not say anything to Lao Tzu. Niwa, take care of yourself. Yi Xian returned from the starry sky. He glanced indifferently at Niwa, and then stepped out towards the 33rd celestial court. Meanwhile, Tong Tian looked deeply at Lao Tzu in the starry sky with a complicated expression, and then instantly chased after Yi Xian. Humph, you want to leave. Suddenly, Yuanshi Tianzuan let out a cold snort. He was about to use the Panga banner to block Yi Xian's path, but before he could do anything, Lao Tzu quietly stood in front of him. If revenge breeds revenge, will there ever be an end to it? Junior brother, you're too stubborn. Lao Tzu sighed softly. Senior brother, this Yi Xian can't be left alive. You have to know that today, he can make Niwa. Yuanshi Tianzuan's expression changed greatly. He was about to persuade him, but before he could finish, Lao Tzu's smile disappeared. His brows were tightly knitted together, and he said, he has that mysterious armor protecting him. You can't kill him. Even if he can't defeat you, how can you stop him if he wants to leave this place? But After being scolded by Lao Tzu, Yuanshi Tianzuan did not dare to complain. He only looked at the backs of Tong Tian and Yi Xian as they left. His eyes were filled with great reluctance. The heavenly Tao is in chaos, and a catastrophe is coming. I can't see Yi Xian's past and future, and I can't calculate the changes in the heavenly Tao. In the future, let him do as he pleases. You can't provoke him without permission, Lao Tzu said coldly. Yes, senior brother. Yuanshi Tianzuan's expression changed. He did not expect that even Lao Tzu would be so afraid of Yi Xian. What was the result of their battle just now? You all can disperse. From now on, the three pure saints will not be involved in the karma of the three realms. Junior brothers and sisters, please take care of yourselves. Lao Tzu said in a hoarse voice. He directly rode away on the green ox, and Yuanshi Tianzuan followed behind him. The two saints of the West and Hudu had complicated expressions, but in the end, they dispersed. On the other side, the three sovereigns of the human race used a great technique to change the heavens and earth, and made Nuwa disappear from this part of the starry sky. Obviously, they were taking her back to the fire cloud cave. Since then, the so-called Skymender festival came to an end. The vault of heaven was still not repaired, but the news of Nuwa's fall from the sainthood spread throughout the three realms. The news of Yi Xian and Tongtian's battle with several saints spread like wildfire. Yi Xian's reputation as the celestial emperor reached its peak. Mount Buzhou, the 33rd layer of the celestial court, the celestial emperor palace. The palace doors were tightly shut, and the immortals were waiting. When Yi Xian and Tong Tian returned together, they directly entered the celestial emperor palace without saying a word to anyone. Inside the celestial emperor palace. Wah! Yi Xian had just steadied himself when he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body cracked like a spiderweb, and his originally rosy face turned ghastly pale. Even his aura became extremely weak. As expected, Tongtian's expression was solemn. He took out 2 golden pills and fed them to Yi Xian. Then, he formed a supreme immortal seal with both hands and began to heal Yi Xian's injuries. Rumble. The aura of chaos circulated, and rays of sacred light circled Yi Xian. After an entire day, Yi Xian's ghastly pale face gradually regained some color, and his tightly shut eyes slowly opened. Dao Tianzuan, what a great Yi Qi turning 3 pure ones. Yi Xian murmured coldly. His eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty coldness, and waves of tyrannical aura emanated from him. No one knew that Yi Xian's battle with Lao Tzu seemed to be a draw, but it also caused the saints to be extremely wary of Yi Xian. It also caused the quasi-saints of various orthodoxies to revere Yi Xian. However, only Yi Xian himself knew that he had lost the battle with Lao Tzu. Moreover, he had lost completely. If not for the Nirvana armor, Yi Xian was absolutely certain that he would have died at Lao Tzu's hands. This battle caused him to suffer unimaginable injuries. Although the Nirvana armor could withstand Lao Tzu's attacks, each of his opponent's attacks contained not only the power of heaven and earth, but also his understanding of the Tao. Although the Nirvana armor was not broken, his saint heart was injured through the Nirvana armor, and directly affected his primordial spirit. Moreover, the Yi Qi turning 3 pure ones was 3 Dao Tianzuan. This was not as simple as 1 + 1. It contained the great terror of life and death. Yi Xian had almost died at Lao Tzu's hands. Fortunately, he did not show any signs of defeat. Instead, he endured the battle with Lao Tzu. He even showed the illusion that although his cultivation was not as good as Lao Tzu's, their combat strength was not too far apart. This also forced Lao Tzu to stop, and in the end, the battle ended in a draw. My senior brother is chasing after Dao ancestor Hung Jun. He can be said to be the strongest person under Hung Jun. It's not a shame that you lost to him, Tong Tian consoled. I'm indeed not his match. However, does Sect Master think that he has it easy? Yi Xian admitted that he had lost. He had lost completely because Lao Tzu's cultivation was comparable to the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. His cultivation was not as good as his opponent's. However, the fact that Lao Tzu could give up on this battle meant that things weren't that simple. Huh? Looking at Yi Xian's cold and playful expression, Tang Tian said in surprise, could it be that he also suffered a great loss? I'm sure he's not having a good time now, right? Yi Xian muttered with a cold smile. His eyes were slightly dazed, as if he was recalling what had happened in this battle. Chapter 935. Outside the 33rd heaven, 8 Visions Temple. As soon as Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu entered the 8 Visions Temple, his body tilted slightly and fell off the green ox. Traces of golden sage blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Senior brother. Such a scene caused Yuanshi Tianzuan's expression to change greatly. He was stunned speechless as he looked at Lao Tzu with eyes filled with horror. What a Yi Xian! That battle armor of his actually contains the power of nirvanic destruction. Lao Tzu sat cross-legged as strands of Tao light emanated from him. A faint black line appeared between his eyebrows, causing Lao Tzu's face to distort. It was obvious that he was suffering from extreme pain. Refine. Rumble. The 8 Visions Temple shook violently as Lao Tzu's body suddenly dissipated. The power of nirvanic destruction emerged and a spatial crack appeared. It instantly devoured this power of nirvanic destruction, and Lao Tzu's body gradually condensed. How could this be? Yuanshi Tianzuan muttered in shock. Lao Tzu's face was pale and the Tao around him was slightly weak, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. Huff. Lao Tzu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His eyes were heavy as he let out a long sigh. That battle armor of his contains a mysterious power that transcends the 3 realms. I was injured by this power during our battle. Fortunately, he couldn't fully control it. I see. Yuanshi Tianzuan finally understood why Lao Tzu wanted Yi Xian to leave. It was obvious that he wasn't confident in killing Lao Tzu. Furthermore, Lao Tzu had also suffered a great loss in this battle. Fear, extreme fear. At this moment, not only was Lao Tzu wary of Yi Xian, but even Yuanshi Tianzuan viewed Yi Xian as his greatest enemy. Unfortunately, the 2 of them didn't know that Yi Xian had already lost this battle. It was just that he didn't show it. Instead, he used the nirvanic battle armor to give Lao Tzu and Yuanshi the illusion that he was very powerful. This was the result that Yi Xian wanted. Senior brother, this Yi Xian was able to extract the Hongmeng immortal vapor from Nua's body. This is simply unimaginable to us heavenly sages. If we let him continue to live, I'm afraid. Yuanshi Tianzuan wanted to say something but stopped. His face was extremely heavy. Junior brother Yuanshi, you're too stubborn. Although Yi Xian is fierce, he knows when to advance and when to retreat. Although you have a bad karma with him, as long as you don't provoke him in the future, I think he won't be aggressive. Moreover, Tao ancestor Hung Jun has merged with the Tao. If this Yi Xian does things without restraint, Tao ancestor Hung Jun will definitely not sit by and watch, Lao Tzu said softly. I hope so. The heavenly sovereign of primordial beginning frowned as he let out a light sigh. However, Yi Xian's existence made him feel uneasy. The 33rd Celestial Court, Celestial Emperor Palace. In that case, you used this battle suit to scare off my senior brother? Tang Tian exclaimed in surprise. He kept observing the Nirvana battle suit that Yi Xian took out. He even wanted to pick up this treasure himself. However, just as he held it in his hand, he staggered and the Nirvana battle suit in his hand almost fell to the ground. This. Tang Tian was extremely shocked. His face was a little red. He dragged the Nirvana battle suit in his hand with both hands. The weight of this battle suit shocked him to the extreme. As heavy as the sky and as thick as the earth. I obtained this Nirvana battle suit by chance. Even if my physical body is unparalleled, I can only wear it to battle for an hour. After an hour, my strength will be exhausted and I will be devoured by this battle suit, Yi Xian said calmly, revealing the hidden dangers of the Nirvana battle suit. If such a treasure could be completely used by you, even if all the saints worked together, they wouldn't be able to do anything to you. It's a pity that this battle suit is too heavy, Tong Tian said with a sigh. Hearing Tong Tian's words, Yi Xian's eyes flickered. Actually, there was one thing he didn't tell Tong Tian. There was a reason why this Nirvana battle suit was so heavy. And this reason was that the Nirvana battle suit didn't recognize him as its master. That's right. This was the real reason. If the Nirvana battle suit recognized him as its master, this battle suit would be as light as a cicada's wings. It wouldn't be a burden to him at all, just like how the heaven-destroying halberd didn't feel any weight in his hand. After experiencing the battle with the saints, Yi Xian discovered a secret. A secret about the heaven-destroying halberd. The Nirvana battle suit and the heaven-destroying halberd came from the same source. The Nirvana battle suit contained the power of Nirvana and could be said to have unparalleled defense. The heaven-destroying halberd was known as the #1 killing weapon of all time and had recognized him as its master long ago. However, why was the heaven-destroying halberd's power inferior to the Nirvana battle suit? The heaven-destroying halberd was not complete. This simple sentence revealed the secret of the heaven-destroying halberd. It also made Yi Xian feel that the heaven-destroying halberd was missing something very important. That was the power that originally existed within the heaven-destroying halberd. Why didn't the heaven-destroying halberd have the power of Nirvana? This was the thing that made Yi Xian's heart heavy. If the heaven-destroying halberd had the power of Nirvana, he could have killed everyone in the heaven-mending banquet. Even if Lao Tzu came, he wouldn't have been afraid. In the end, Yi Xian came to a conclusion. The heaven-destroying halberd was not complete. What it lacked was the power of Nirvana. However, Yi Xian couldn't figure out why the heaven-destroying halberd had lost the power of Nirvana. This was why Nuwa was able to escape from the heaven-mending banquet. It wasn't that Yi Xian didn't want to kill this bitch, it was just that the situation didn't allow him to act recklessly. The two saints of the West, Hutu, Yuanshi Tianzuan, the three kings of the human race, and the leader of the three pure ones, Lao Tzu. Yi Xian and the Tong Tian wouldn't have a good ending against these people. If he insisted on killing Nuwa, then he and the Tong Tian would be at a disadvantage. This was not an outcome that Yi Xian wanted. That was why he insisted on fighting with Laozi. He wanted to intimidate the sages and intimidate them. That was why he fought with Laozi earlier. Fortunately, Yi Xian used the Nirvana battle armor to cause fear in the hearts of the saints, and also scared Laozi and the others away. Yi Xian has never forgotten the great kindness you have shown me in the past. In the future, if anything happens to you, Yi Xian will definitely come to your aid no matter what. Yi Xian solemnly bowed towards Tong Tian. Before he had overcome the three tribulations of the heavenly Tao, he owed Tong Tian a great deal of karma. This was the karma of a saint, so he would definitely repay it in the future. Fellow Taoist Yi, you've achieved the Tao in a different way and will truly unify the three realms. Although my Jie sect is useless, they can still lend you a hand, Tong Tian said with a smile. In the past, Tong Tian treated Yi Xian as a junior. However, after the heaven-mending banquet, Tong Tian completely regarded Yi Xian as someone of the same generation. Needless to say, the two of them had a tacit understanding of certain matters. The two chatted for several days in the Heavenly Emperor Palace. No one knew what they were talking about. After several days, Tong Tian drifted away. After all, he was a heavenly Tao saint and couldn't stay for long at Yi Xian's place. Moreover, the Immortal slaying sword formation was damaged after the battle, so he needed to return to the roaming Jade Palace to repair it. Chapter 936. In the Celestial Arch Palace. Yi Xian sat cross-legged. There was no one around him except for the five-colored godstone floating in front of him. A wisp of Hongmeng immortal qi pulsated in his palm. The five-colored godstone was a treasure of heaven and earth. It could be used to repair the broken sky. The Hongmeng immortal qi was a necessary item to become a saint. These two items could create a new saint. Yi Xian was deep in thought. He stared at the two treasures with narrowed eyes. No one knew what he was thinking, but his eyelids were twitching slightly. Clearly, he was not calm. Although becoming a heavenly saint is good, it is the end. It is restricted by the heavenly Tao. This position seems tempting, but it is also a great hidden danger for the celestial court. Yi Xian frowned and muttered to himself. There was only one saint position, but it was difficult to decide who to give it to. The original members of the 33rd Celestial Court, including Kong Xian, Kuan Peng, and Taishang Laojun, were all qualified to become saints. Besides, with the addition of the ancient demon court, Donghuang Tai and Di Jun were even more suitable candidates. No matter which one of them became saints, they would be a great help to Yi Xian. However, the human heart was the most complicated thing. The 33rd Celestial Court seemed to be an iron bucket under his leadership. It could even be said that they were united. However, the chance of becoming a saint was too great. If Yi Xian favored someone, it would definitely cause others to be dissatisfied. Of course, even if they were dissatisfied, no one dared to say anything. However, Yi Xian deeply understood that as the supreme ruler of the 33rd Celestial Court, if he could not convince his subordinates, he would be too much of a failure. Buzz! Yi Xian waved his hand and put away the Hongmeng immortal qi and the five-colored godstone. He had not decided who to give this chance to become a saint. Moreover, Yi Xian was a little selfish. Yes, it was selfishness. He was only at the peak of the third tribulation of the heavenly Tao. He was only a step away from the fourth tribulation of the heavenly Tao. If he created a new saint at this moment, this person's desire would swell and escape his control. This was not the outcome he wanted. Yi Xian wouldn't trust anyone, not even his loyal subordinates. This was because Yi Xian understood that the so-called loyalty was the result of his carrot-and-stick approach. Kuan Peng was one of them, Taishang Laojun was one of them, and so were the two demonic emperors. Perhaps only Kong Xian, who was his brother, was not one of them. However, Yi Xian also understood that these quasi-sages had similar cultivation levels. If he was biased towards one of them, the others would not be convinced. Therefore, Yi Xian had to carefully consider who to give the opportunity to become a sage. However, before this, Yi Xian had to pass the fourth tribulation of the heavenly Tao. This was because only by constantly becoming stronger could he truly control the future. Moreover, the appearance of the heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue gave him a lot of pressure. The heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue was a saint comparable to the heavenly Tao's 5 tribulations. If he didn't have the Nirvana battle armor, the heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue would have already killed him. Besides Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu, the Yuanshi Tianzuan, the two saints of the West, and Hutu had formed a bad karma with him. Yi Xian was a vengeful person. He had never forgotten to settle the score with these saints. After the battle at the Skymender banquet, Yi Xian also understood one thing. Besides these heavenly Tao saints, there were other Tao breakers in the 3 realms. Now, Yi Xian knew that there were the 3 sovereigns of the human race. If he guessed correctly, the demon ancestor Luo Ho must have achieved the Tao through another method. As for whether there were others, Yi Xian did not dare to be sure. As the saying goes, a man has no intention of hurting a tiger, but a tiger wants to hurt a man. Only by constantly becoming stronger could one truly be fearless of any great enemy and be able to crush everything in all directions. Therefore, what Yi Xian needed to do now was to cultivate and step into the fourth tribulation of the heavenly Tao as soon as possible. At the same time, in the Mirage Sea Star, the void gave birth to each other. A nameless mountain floated between illusion and reality. A black stone tablet took root at the peak of the mountain. 3 large words were written on the stone tablet: Fire Cloud Cave. Fire Cloud Cave was the place where the three sovereigns of the human race lived in seclusion. The cave suppressed the destiny of the human race, allowing the human race to prosper without decline and forever be the main character of the world. The three sovereigns of the human race were led by Fushi. He had a bitter expression and sighed repeatedly because Nua's body was damaged. She was sitting cross-legged in a golden spirit pool. Clearly, she was healing herself. Phew! Nua exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi. She gradually opened her eyes and her pale face became rosy. Brother! Nua got up from the golden spirit pool. She first bowed to Fushi, then to Shenong and Xianyuan with gratitude. She thanked them for saving her life. Nua, fellow Taoist, you were able to escape from Yi Xian because Fushi asked Lao Tzu to help. Otherwise, the three of us would have been trapped in the Fire Cloud Cave and couldn't have saved you. Shenong sighed. Nua, fellow Taoist, from now on, you can cultivate in peace in the Fire Cloud Cave. Don't provoke Yi Xian again. Only in this way can you survive the catastrophe of heaven and earth. Xianyuan advised. Survive the catastrophe of heaven and earth? Nua laughed at herself and slowly raised her hands. She no longer had the power of the way of heaven. She only had the cultivation of a sage-to-be. Fellow Taoists, I have even lost my position as a saint. Could there be a greater catastrophe than this? Nua's voice was hoarse. She bit her lips so hard that they almost broke. The hatred in her words was extremely shocking. Her eyes were slightly red. Obviously, she hated Yi Xian to the extreme. It was no wonder that Nua was like this. She was a saint of the way of heaven. How could she accept this result when she fell from the clouds and was trampled under Yi Xian's feet like a dead dog? Brother! Suddenly, Nua looked up at Fushi with tears in her eyes and said, You are the three sovereigns of the human race. You have the luck of the human race. Your cultivation is not weaker than Yuan Tianzuan's. As long as you are willing to stand up for me, Yi Xian will definitely, sister. Fushi suddenly shouted angrily and interrupted Nua. He roared, Haven't you caused enough trouble? Do you know that in order to save your life, we used the luck of the human race to beg Lao Tzu? Only then did he help you. If you insist on being enemies with Yi Xian, no one will be able to save you in the future. Brother! Brother! I know I was wrong. Fushi was furious. Nua hurriedly bowed and apologized. This was her only family. Even though she hated Yi Xian to the core, she did not dare to show it in front of Fushi. Looking at Nua's terrified appearance, Fushi's eyes flashed with a touch of pity. After all, she was his sister. Now that she had fallen from the holy birth, how could he not feel sorry for Nua? However, Fushi knew that Yi Xian's power had been established. The three sovereigns of the human race would be imprisoned in the Fire Cloud Cave forever. If they really walked out of the Fire Cloud Cave, the luck of the human race would definitely dissipate. They would also be involved in the dispute of the heavens and earth. If the human race perished in this great era, the three sovereigns of the human race would become eternal sinners. Sister, from now on, you will cultivate in the Fire Cloud Cave with peace of mind. I will not allow you to be enemies with Yi Xian. If you dare to disobey, I, Fushi, will no longer have a sister like you, Fushi scolded angrily. Yes, brother. Nua clenched her fists. However, she still nodded in agreement. The hatred in her eyes became more and more intense. Yi Xian, all of this is caused by you. As long as I, Nua, don't die, I will settle this monstrous blood feud with you sooner or later. Nua roared loudly in her heart. However, she looked extremely calm on the surface. The demon ancestor's disciple requests an audience with the three sovereigns of the human race. Suddenly, right when Fushi was reprimanding Nua, a clear and cold voice sounded out from outside Fire Cloud Cave, and it caused the expressions of the three emperors of the human race to change slightly. The demon ancestor Luoho. Nua's eyes were startled. She then muttered. This Luo Ho is good. He can find the fire cloud cave. The human emperor Xian Yuan frowned and said. One does not visit a temple without a cause. No matter what trick this Luo Ho wants to play, just send his disciple away, Fuxi said coldly. The three sovereigns of the human race do not get involved in the dispute of the three realms. Go back and tell Luo Ho not to disturb us again, Shino said coldly. Outside the fire cloud cave. Gu Ruochen was dressed in black. A long and narrow scar appeared on the left side of his face. His cultivation was in the Sage-to-be realm. Demon Qi rumbled and rose from his body. It gave people a feeling of monstrous demon Qi. Master has ordered that if I do not see the three sovereigns of the human race, I must punish Ruochen. Please do not make things difficult for me. Gu Ruochen bowed 3 times. His posture was extremely humble. If Yi Xian was here, he would definitely recognize that this black-clothed young man named Gu Ruochen was Gu Beichen, who he had placed beside the demon ancestor. After hundreds of thousands of years, Gu Beichen had become a sage-to-be. He was no longer weak. Chapter 937. Come in. Fuxi hesitated for a moment before inviting Gu Beichen into the fire cloud cave. After all, the three sovereigns of the human race did not want to offend the demon ancestor Luo Ho too much. If they did not give him any face, it would be disrespectful to Luo Ho. Thud, thud, thud. Gu Beichen strolled into the fire cloud cave. His expression was neither servile nor overbearing. After more than 100,000 years, he was no longer the hot-blooded youth of the past. He had turned into a scheming and astute person. He even had the cultivation to stand proudly in the three realms and become a sage-to-be. The words sage-to-be sounded simple, but it was harder than ascending to the heavens to truly step into this realm. No one knew how Gu Beichen had spent the past 100,000 years, but he had relied on his great perseverance to become a sage-to-be. He was proud and had the might of a sage-to-be. Even when facing the three sovereigns of the human race, he did not show any signs of panic. When Gu Beichen stood before the three sovereigns of the human race, he only bowed to them as a form of greeting. Disciple Gu Ruochen is here today to pay a visit to the three sovereigns of the human race under the orders of my master. This is a letter that my master asked me to bring. Please take a look. Gu Beichen flipped his hand and a letter appeared. He presented the letter to Fuxi solemnly. Fuxi frowned as he took the letter and flipped through it. Fuxi read the letter very quickly. It only took a few breaths. However, his expression gradually turned gloomy and a cold light flashed across his eyes from time to time. My master asked me to pass a message to you. If the three sovereigns of the human race are willing to lend the power of the human race, he will agree to any conditions. He will even have no problem killing Yi Xian on behalf of Her Highness Nuwa, Gu Beichen said with a smile. Gu Beichen said with a smile. When he saw Nuwa, he nodded kindly. This made Nuwa clench her fists as an inexplicable light flashed across her eyes. Humph! Suddenly, Fuxi tossed the letter in his hand to the ground. His face became extremely cold as he flatly refused, go back and tell Luo Ho that we, the three human emperors, know what he's thinking. However, the power of humanity is used to protect the fate of the human race, so it's impossible for us to lend it to him. Tell him to give up. As for the enmity between Nuwa and Yi Xian, it's already been resolved. It's wishful thinking for him to fish in troubled waters, Fuxi rebuked coldly. Go back and tell Luo Ho that if he still doesn't know his place, then he'll definitely repeat the calamity of the past. If it causes the Daoist ancestor Hong Jun to emerge into the world, then he'll probably face the danger of dying. Shenong agreed coldly. The human race can be safe and sound for eternity because I'm the one who protects the fate of the human race in the fire cloud cave. The power of the human race isn't unique to the three sovereigns of the human race. Luo Ho is one of the chaos demon gods. If he wants to take the fate of the human race, he'll be putting the human race to death. Don't blame the 3 sovereigns of the human race for treating him as an enemy, Human Emperor Xianyuan Zhen said angrily. My 3 brothers, why don't we? Nuwa wanted to say something, but she was met with Fushi's cold gaze. This made Nuwa's eyelids twitch. She swallowed her words. I'm just a messenger. Since the 3 of you have made up your mind, I don't dare to ask for more. However, I don't know if I should say something before I leave. Gu Beichen said with a smile. What do you want to say? Fushi said coldly. Ha! Gu Beichen chuckled and said, I'm just lamenting that the 3 sovereigns of the human race can never walk out of the fire cloud cave. Even Her Majesty Nuwa was defeated and humiliated. The 3 of you can only bear with it. Isn't this a big joke? How dare you? It was a pity that Gu Beichen wasn't afraid in the slightest. He continued to do his own thing and said, how pitiful, how pitiful. 3 dignified cultivators, a heavenly Tao saint from the past, were actually scared to the point of cowering by Yi Xian. It seems like my master has overestimated you. After Gu Beichen finished speaking, he turned around and walked out of the fire cloud cave. The 3 sovereigns and Nuwa looked ashamed and angry. Anger rose in their hearts, but in the end, they did not attack Gu Beichen. They just let him leave. Although they were ridiculed, Fushi and the others knew that what Gu Beichen said was the truth. This made them unable to refute. Moreover, Gu Beichen was only a disciple of the demon ancestor. If they bullied him, not to mention whether the demon ancestor would be angry, they would lose face if word got out. Big brother, this guy is right. My sister's saint position has been taken away and we can only bear with it in the fire cloud cave. This is a great humiliation. Why don't we lend the power of people Dao to the demon ancestor Luoho? With the demon ancestor Luoho's ability, he can definitely kill Yi Xian. Nuwa finally lost control of her shame and anger and begged Fushi loudly. Shut up. Slap. Fushi was furious. He slapped Nuwa. A clear red handprint appeared on her cheek. Nuwa was stunned. She covered her cheek and looked at Fushi. She did not expect Fushi to slap her. Do you know that the power of people Dao is the foundation of the human race? It is the foundation that suppresses the human race's fate. If we lend the power of people Dao to Luoho, how will the human race's fate be suppressed in the fire cloud cave? Do you want us to become the sinners of the human race? Do you want the entire human race to fall into a state of eternal damnation? Fushi was furious. He scolded Nuwa sternly. His eyes were filled with hatred. My friend Nuwa, don't you understand? Shino sighed sadly and said, how could Fushi not want to seek justice for you? He's your brother. However, the fate of the human race is very important. Luoho is obviously using you to instigate us. If we lend him the power of people Dao, he will fulfill his promise to us and kill Yi Xian. However, without the suppression of the power of people Dao, the fate of the human race in the fire cloud cave will dissipate. Our human race will be involved in this catastrophe. My friend Nuwa, Luoho is one of the chaos demon gods. He is sinister, cunning, and extremely evil. He certainly doesn't have good intentions. The power of people Dao is very important. We can't let him take advantage of us, Human Emperor Xianyuan sighed and said. I understand. Nuwa smiled sadly. She staggered out of the fire cloud cave. Her aura was extremely bleak. Fushi's body slightly trembled. He weakly swung his hand. He seemed to have aged a little. Brother Fushi, Nuwa has fallen from the saint position. It's inevitable that she's unwilling to accept it. You don't have to feel sad and blame yourself, Shino patted Fushi's shoulder and comforted him. The darkness has arrived. The heavenly Tao has collapsed. This catastrophe has begun. My little sister used to be a saint. However, she has never experienced any hardships. Now that she has fallen from the clouds, I'm afraid that she will lose her mind and make a big mistake, Fuxi murmured bitterly. Brother, you can rest assured. As long as the three sovereigns of the human race guard the fire cloud cave forever, even if the outside world collapses, the flame of the human race will exist forever. Nuwa has us to take care of her. After a long time, she will naturally let go of the hatred in her heart, human Emperor Xian Yuan comforted him. I hope so. Fuxi looked at Nuwa's back with pity in his eyes. He heaved a long sigh. Chapter 938. In the chaotic starry sky, the land of infinity. Stars twinkled in the starry sky. Gu Beichen wandered in the starry sky until he landed on a withered star. A figure surrounded by demonic light stood in front of him. Greetings, Master. I've done what you asked me to do. Gu Beichen looked sincere as he bowed to the figure. Good. You've done well. You're indeed the disciple I'm most proud of. The person slowly turned around, revealing his original appearance. He was dressed in a black Taoist robe with the sun, moon, and stars engraved on it. His skin was as fair as jade, and his eyes were like stars. His chiseled face looked like it was carved by the gods. His handsome appearance was simply stunning. The demon ancestor Luo Ho. One of the legendary 3,000 demon gods in the chaos. He was also a cultivator who achieved Tao through another method. In the past, he had competed with Tao ancestor Hong Jun, but was defeated by him. If one had not seen Luo Ho before, they would have thought that Luo Ho was a ferocious person who looked extremely old. But in fact, the demon ancestor Luo Ho was extremely handsome. One would be stunned by his handsome appearance at a glance. He could be said to be the most handsome man in the three realms. Master, the three sovereigns of the human race rejected your suggestion. What should we do next? Gu Beichen asked softly. The three sovereigns of the human race are stupid. I expected them to reject me. My real target is not the three sovereigns of the human race, but Her Majesty Nuwa. Luo Ho smiled faintly, her eyes sparkling with wisdom. This made Gu Beichen's heart skip a beat, and he hurriedly bowed to Luo Ho. Master's wisdom is unparalleled, and your cultivation is unprecedented. I'm stupid and don't know what you're thinking. Gu Beichen asked humbly. You're joking, my disciple. My cultivation is just another method of achieving Tao. At most, I'm on par with Lao Tzu. But if I really fight with these heavenly saints, I'll be the one to lose in the end. After all, they have the support of the heavenly Tao and are immortal. Luo Ho smiled. So you want the power of the human Tao? If you have the support of the human Tao, you can crush these heavenly saints? Gu Beichen said in a low voice. Luo Ho smiled and did not answer Gu Beichen's question. Instead, he said, Ruochen, you've followed me for hundreds of thousands of years, but I've rarely heard you mention your background. When Luo Ho finished speaking, Gu Beichen felt as if thunder had exploded in his head. But his expression did not change, and he did not show any abnormality. Instead, he bowed to Luo Ho and said, I'm a demon cultivator from the Dongxing Divine Continent. I entered the demon world by chance and was able to become your disciple. I won't dare to have any disloyalty. Master, please understand. Ha! Luo Ho laughed out loud and looked at Gu Beichen with an unfathomable gaze. Don't think too much, my disciple. Of course, I know your loyalty. It's just that I've divined your past, but I can't get any revelation from the heavens. It's as if you're not born from this world. This is something that I've always found strange. I don't understand it either. As the saying went, too much explanation would only make people more suspicious. Silence might be the best cover. And Gu Beichen had been through hundreds of thousands of years of tempering. He had already tempered his state of mind to the point that he would not be alarmed even if the sky collapsed. Naturally, he would not show any signs of fear. I must be thinking too much. Now that the mysteries of heaven are in chaos, the calamity has already begun. Perhaps you're one of the main characters in this calamity. After all, I'm also born of chaos. I can't reveal myself in the mysteries of heaven. Luo Ho sighed softly. Alright, that Nuwa is filled with hatred now. It's a good opportunity for me. Let's go see her. Luo Ho smiled. The demonic light around him turned the heavens and the earth upside down. This part of the starry sky suddenly turned illusory. Gu Beichen only felt the heavens and earth spinning. A great sense of dizziness appeared, causing him to unconsciously close his eyes. Buzz! The world changed. When Gu Beichen opened his eyes, he and Luo Ho were no longer where they were. Instead, they appeared in a dense bamboo forest. This is the foot of the mountain of the fire cloud cave. Gu Beichen muttered in shock. It was no wonder that Gu Beichen was extremely shocked. He had just walked through this bamboo forest, and the peak of the mountain was where the fire cloud cave was. At this moment, he actually reappeared here. She's here. Luo Ho smiled. He placed his hands behind his back and waited quietly in the bamboo forest. Nuwa was walking towards this bamboo forest. She did not know that the demon ancestor Luo Ho was waiting for her here. Chi! Damn it, damn it! Nuwa's hatred was higher than the sky. Her face was filled with misery and unwillingness. Her mind was filled with Yi Xian's hateful face. Fushi's words of reprimand towards her kept echoing in her mind. A proud daughter of heaven with a sage position. This was the best description of Nuwa. From the moment she was born, her path had been smooth sailing. Before she became a sage, she had the protection of her elder brother, Fushi. Until she was recognized as a heavenly sage, she had always been a high and mighty existence. However, she had fallen from her sage position in one move. Now that she was in such a state, Nuwa's hatred for Yi Xian reached its peak. She was not willing to stay in the fire cloud cave. She wanted to take revenge on Yi Xian. She wanted to regain her sage position and become a high and mighty heavenly sage again. Unfortunately, everything was in the past. Everything was impossible. Yi Xian had achieved the Tao in another way. He had truly unified the three realms. The three sovereigns of the human race would not leave the fire cloud cave, let alone help her take revenge on Yi Xian. Today, even the disciples sent by the demon ancestor, Luo Ho, had ridiculed her. This made Nuwa extremely ashamed and desperate. Yi Xian, as long as I'm alive, I'll definitely fight you to the death. Nuwa muttered hatefully. She had unknowingly entered the bamboo forest. However, she did not notice that when she entered the bamboo forest, a faint demonic light had covered the entire bamboo forest. It had also isolated the aura of this place from the outside world. You sure talk big, but with your quasi-saint cultivation, even this ancestor's disciple can crush you. What qualifications do you have to seek revenge from Yi Xian? Who? Nuwa suddenly woke up. Her eyes were extremely red. She had never thought that there would be someone else in the vicinity of the fire cloud cave. Thud, thud, thud. Luo Ho walked out from the depths of the bamboo forest with Gu Beichen by his side. When Nuwa saw Luo Ho, her expression changed instantly. Her gaze suddenly fell on Luo Ho, and she took 3 steps back. Nuwa was not stupid. She was just blinded by hatred. At this moment, Gu Beichen appeared here with a black-clothed man beside him. However, this demon ancestor's disciple was extremely humble. This had already indirectly revealed the identity of this black-clothed man. Demon ancestor, Luo Ho. Nuwa's eyes froze. She was shocked to say Luo Ho's identity. Although she was once a heavenly path saint, she had never seen Luo Ho in person. After all, at the beginning of the world, the saints had not yet become saints. This Luo Ho had been injured by Tao ancestor, Hong Jun, and had been dormant. It was impossible for her to have a chance to see him. That's me. Luo Ho smiled and nodded kindly at Nuwa. Luo Ho, how dare you appear here? Aren't you afraid that my brother will find out? Nuwa shouted angrily. Nuwa, I know that you have a great hatred in your heart. However, in the entire 3 realms, who can help you? Luo Ho did not answer her question. He still had a smile on his face. He walked slowly to Nuwa. Nuwa held her breath. She did not immediately call out to Fushi. Her expression kept changing, as if she was hesitating about something. It seems that you also understand that in the 3 realms, no one can help you except me. Why don't we talk? Luo Ho waved his hand, and 2 praying mats appeared. He sat cross-legged on one of the praying mats, and then looked at Nuwa with a smile. Chapter 939. The winds suddenly blew, and the green bamboo swayed. Luo Ho's smile was very sincere. He stared at Nuwa, and his eyes were full of inexplicable confidence. Nuwa frowned, and unconsciously clenched her teeth. Her breathing was slightly heavy, and her eyes flashed with an extremely complicated look. Nuwa was very clear about what kind of person Luo Ho was. The other party was an evil demon, and was not tolerated by the world. His cultivation was extremely terrifying. In the past, he had escaped from the hands of ancestor Hong Jun. Cooperating with such a person was tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. However, Nuwa was very unwilling. She was really unwilling to stay in the fire cloud cave forever. The 3 sovereigns of the human race would not help her take revenge. At this moment, her only hope was Luo Ho in front of her. If she could choose, Nuwa would never choose Luo Ho. However, Nuwa knew that no one could help her. Even her brother Fushi was the same. Hatred could make a person crazy, and they would go crazy regardless of the consequences. Nuwa could not forget the humiliation that Yi Xian had inflicted on her. This kind of hatred went deep into her bones, and made her unable to sleep at night. And this kind of monstrous hatred could make Nuwa do extremely crazy things. Speak, what do you want to talk to me about? Nuwa's expression gradually calmed down. She leisurely sat cross-legged on another futon, and looked at Luo Ho with a deep gaze. Luo Ho faintly smiled, as if everything was within his expectations. He did not make any movements, but turned his hand, and a black lotus appeared in his hand. World Annihilation Demon Lotus. What do you mean by this? When she saw the thing in Luo Ho's hand, Nuwa's expression suddenly changed. Just the aura that the black lotus bloomed with made Nuwa extremely certain that this was the legendary World Annihilation Demon Lotus. This World Annihilation Demon Lotus breathes the power of destruction, but this is only one of its functions. The other function of this lotus is to absorb and fuse all kinds of power. As long as you use this World Annihilation Demon Lotus to absorb all the power of humanity, this ancestor can kill Yi Xian for you, and even let you take back your saint position. Luo Ho spoke with assurance, and a warm smile hung on his face. Impossible. Nuwa flatly refused, and her face was ashen. Although she wanted Yi Xian to die without a burial place, she knew very well that if the World Annihilation Demon Lotus to absorb the power of humanity, the human race would be completely involved in this world catastrophe. Moreover, if she really did that, how could she face the 3 sovereigns of the human race? How could she face her big brother, Fushi? Even if she took a step back and even if Nuwa accepted this deal, the 3 sovereigns of the human race weren't just for show, so how could they let Nuwa succeed? How could they let her do such a disgraceful thing? Nuwa's blunt refusal didn't surprise Luo Ho, and it was as if everything was within his expectations. He stood up slightly from the cushion and let out a long sigh. Since fellow Taoist is unwilling to make this deal with me, then this ancestor won't force you. But it's a pity that fellow Taoist is a saint of the heavenly path, yet you were beaten down by Yi Xian and humiliated in front of all the living beings in the 3 dimensions. From now on, you can only stay in this fire cloud cave, and you'll never be able to make a name for yourself again. Luoho's words were like a sharp knife, but also like a sword that pierced the heart. Nuwa was stunned on the spot. She clenched her fists tightly, and her eyes were faintly red. Extreme humiliation and shame flickered in her eyes. Wait. Without waiting for Luoho to get up and leave, Nuwa stopped Luoho. She said with a slightly gloomy expression, even if I'm willing to help you, the three sovereigns of the human race are all different. With my current cultivation, I can't do it at all. Fellow Taoist, you're really a sensible person. Luoho smiled. A black lotus seed rippled out from the world annihilation demonic lotus. It flickered with a mysterious light in the air, which stunned Nuwa. She didn't know what Luoho wanted to do. This lotus seed was nurtured by the world annihilation demonic lotus. As long as you infuse it into the wine and let the three sovereigns consume it, their cultivation will be sealed for an hour. This is enough time for you to take the power of humanity. When the time comes, hand over the power of humanity to me and I will go to the celestial court to take Yi Xian's life. When I take back the Hong Meng violet qi, you will still be a heavenly Tao saint. One had to admit that Luoho was the best at bewitching people. Every word he said was directed at Nuwa's heart. He also knew what Nuwa wanted the most. Will this lotus seed harm my brother's life? Nuwa was already moved. Her face was slightly flushed, but she hadn't completely lost her mind. If this lotus seed really harmed Fushi's life, she would regret it for the rest of her life. Don't worry, fellow Taoist. The three sovereigns of the human race all achieved their Tao through different means. Their cultivation is comparable to that of saints. This lotus seed won't be able to harm their lives. It will only temporarily seal their cultivation. I can swear a great vow of the heart that I will never let you off, fellow Taoist, Luoho said with a smile. Okay. Nuwa slowly nodded. Her eyes flashed with madness because she had no other choice. She could only take the risk and cooperate with Luoho because this was her only chance. Before we part, I have something to tell you. Every 1,000 years, the luck of the human race in the fire cloud cave will spread to the outside world. The three sovereigns of the human race will channel the power of the human race to suppress it. This is your chance. If you miss this chance, you will have to wait for the next 1,000 years. There are still 300 years before this chance. In these 300 years, you will have enough time to prepare. Luoho warned solemnly. After that, he handed the world annihilation demonic lotus to Nuwa. He also handed over the dazzling black lotus seed. After receiving the world annihilation demonic lotus from Luoho, Nuwa solemnly put it away. She took a deep look at Luoho before suddenly turning around and shooting towards the fire cloud cave. The conversation between the two fell into Gu Beichen's ears. This made his eyes turn gloomy. Having followed Luoho for hundreds of thousands of years, Gu Beichen had always been on tenterhooks, never daring to be careless. Furthermore, the longer he followed Luoho, the more he realized how unfathomable Luoho was. Be it in terms of cultivation or shrewdness, Gu Beichen always had the feeling that he could not see through this person. Sometimes, when he stood in front of Luoho, he had the feeling that the other party could see through him. This feeling made his heart tremble. Therefore, after hundreds of thousands of years, he had never taken the initiative to contact Yi Xian. He was afraid that Luoho would find out. However, today's matter was a great threat to Yi Xian. If Nuwa really succeeded in obtaining the power of humanity, coupled with the demon ancestor's current cultivation, Yi Xian would be in great trouble. Looking at the heaven, earth, and man realms, only Tao ancestor Hong Jun could keep Luoho in check. Disciple, what's wrong? Just as Gu Beichen was in a state of extreme anxiety, Luoho's voice rang out. This made Gu Beichen shocked. However, he remained calm and bowed to Luoho. Master, please don't blame me. I was just a little distracted. If this Nuwa doesn't succeed, won't we alert the enemy? Chapter 940. Ha! Luo Ho smiled. He placed his hands behind his back and looked in the direction of the fire cloud cave. He muttered, "This Nuwa has hatred in her heart. This deep-rooted hatred has already driven her crazy. She will definitely succeed. But are you really going to fight with Yi Xian for Nuwa?" Gu Beichen probed subtly. Unfortunately, Luo Ho did not answer this question. This made Gu Beichen's heart skip a beat. He could only silently stand behind Luo Ho. "Disciple, I have a letter here. I want you to personally make a trip to the celestial court and hand it to Yi Xian. Go now." Luo Ho casually threw out a letter. Gu Beichen hurriedly caught it. Before he could ask Luo Ho's purpose, Luo Ho actually disappeared in front of him. "This." Gu Beichen held the letter. His expression was uncertain. He wanted to find an opportunity to inform Yi Xian about what happened today. However, Luo Ho wanted him to bring the letter to the celestial court. Phew. Gu Beichen slowly exhaled and quickly kept the letter. Now, he could only do as Luo Ho said. As for what would happen in the future, he could only wait and see. Chi. Gu Beichen turned into a ray of light and disappeared. He was heading towards the 33rd Celestial Court. Inside the fire cloud cave, the three sovereigns of the human race were sitting cross-legged. Nuwa had already returned. She even personally apologized to the three sovereigns of the human race. This made Fuxi feel slightly relieved. Nuwa seemed to have calmed down the hatred in her heart. She really did as Fuxi instructed and cultivated in peace. However, Fuxi did not see a trace of madness in Nuwa's eyes. That extreme madness simply made one's heart tremble. Hatred higher than the heavens and acting crazily. When these two factors gathered on a person, this kind of person would do extremely terrifying things. At this moment, Nuwa was precisely this kind of person. What the three human emperors didn't know was that the fact that they had gone through so much trouble to save Nuwa had also created a terrifying hidden danger for them. Yi Xian, you won't be able to be proud for much longer. In 300 years, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground and never reincarnate. Nuwa sat cross-legged in the fire cloud cave. She slightly opened her eyes and looked at the 33rd layer of the celestial court, letting out a vicious roar in her heart. Mount Buzhou, the 33rd Celestial Court. Ever since Yi Xian returned to the Celestial Court, he had shut himself in the Celestial Court, and the huge Celestial Court welcomed an unprecedented grand occasion. The addition of the ancient Fei Court, led by 2 Fei Emperors and 5,000 great ancient Fei, made the 33rd Celestial Court extremely fearsome. There were dozens of demi-saints, and tens of thousands of Daluo Jingxian. The rest of the immortals and Fei kings were as numerous as carps crossing the river. The two ultimate formations of heaven and earth. The formation of absolute chaos and the grand formation of heavenly stars both became the protective formations of the 33rd Celestial Court. The various orthodoxies of the earth immortal realm all submitted to the Celestial Court. The 5 ghostly realms of the underworld all submitted to the Celestial Court. It could be said that the entire 3 realms were unified by the Celestial Court. Yi Xian's title as Celestial Emperor spread throughout the 3 realms. Everyone who heard of it bowed and kowtowed, and no one dared to show the slightest disrespect. The witch tribe retreated, the sage orthodoxies went into hibernation, and the 33rd Celestial Court became unprecedentedly powerful. No one in the 3 realms was unconvinced, and no one dared to show the slightest dissatisfaction. From the mortal kingdoms to the sage orthodoxies, everyone had to respectfully refer to Yi Xian as Celestial Emperor. The 33rd Celestial Court was extremely efficient. Images of celestial emperors were created one after another, rising from the ground all over the 3 realms to be worshipped by all living beings. However, the 33rd Celestial Court, which had become unprecedentedly powerful, still needed time to adjust to each other. Naturally, some disputes were unavoidable during this process. Fortunately, these disputes were only minor issues. After all, with Yi Xian presiding over the celestial court, no one dared to fight among themselves. However, after the three realms were unified, the underworld was led by the Nether River Patriarch and the Yellow Springs Patriarch. Both of them had the Ghost Sage following them, and the 10 Kings of Hell taking care of the underworld and the Tao of Reincarnation. Meanwhile, the monster tribe had 2 monster emperors, and their billions of monster tribe members were naturally not to be underestimated. On the other hand, the celestial court had Taisheng Laojun, Kang Xian, and the others. They were Yi Xian's original subordinates. Meanwhile, the immortals of the Jia sect had rejoined the celestial court. Although their cultivation wasn't high, this was Tongtian's orthodoxy, so they naturally couldn't be underestimated. 100 flowers bloomed, each displaying their own abilities. Although the celestial court was vaguely divided into several factions, they were all competing with each other to not lose to each other. This also allowed the 33rd celestial court to constantly develop in a positive direction. Since Yi Xian had yet to emerge from seclusion, as his subordinates, they naturally had to do their best to show off their abilities. This was also to prove their abilities to Yi Xian. Among them, the 2 monster emperors were the most eye-catching. The 2 led the cosmic star formation, which was personally set up by the ancient myriad monsters, and even built the 33rd celestial court into an impregnable fortress. And that wasn't all. The 2 monster emperors swept across all directions, continuously subduing the orthodoxies of the lower realm and announcing that the celestial court would unite the 3 realms. Meanwhile, the Nether River Patriarch wasn't willing to fall behind in the underworld either. He led many demi-saints shuttling between the underworld and the celestial court, even transplanting rare spirit herbs from the underworld to Mount Buzhou, fully demonstrating the celestial court's might as the ruler of the 3 realms. Everyone was on the move, and all they did was to wait for Yi Xian to emerge from seclusion. Kang Xian and the others were also left with nothing to do. Every day, they would receive guests from all over the world, occasionally exchanging drinks with their friends. They appeared to be at ease. Clang, clang, clang. On this day, the sound of 9981 bells reverberated throughout the 33 levels of the heavenly court. This also caused everyone in the heavenly court to ride on a cloud and rush towards the heavenly emperor palace. This was because the sound of the bell indicated that Yi Xian had already come out of seclusion and was summoning them over. The celestial court was shaken when the celestial emperor emerged from seclusion. For a time, the 33rd celestial court was extremely lively. This was because Yi Xian was the reason why the celestial court was so powerful today. In the celestial emperor palace, thousands of auspicious vapors and multicolored lights filled the palace. Countless figures bowed on both sides of the palace. They were the important figures of the celestial court. Taisheng Laojun, Kuan Peng, Kang Xian, Eastern Emperor Tai, Emperor Jun, Nether River Patriarch, Yellow Spring Patriarch, just the demi-saints alone numbered in the dozens. As for the other immortals and demon kings, there were simply too many to count. The vast celestial emperor palace was clearly overcrowded. On the celestial emperor's throne, Yi Xian did not wear the celestial emperor's robe. He was still covered in black clothes, and he did not care about these complicated formalities. To put it bluntly, with Yi Xian's current power and influence, even if he appeared here dressed as a beggar, he was still the master of the 3 realms. No one dared to look down on him. Immortal title. Venus Taibai strode out with the golden decree in her hands. Obviously, Yi Xian had emerged from seclusion today to perform the title ceremony. After all, the 3 realms had been united, and the identities of the people in the celestial court were unknown. This was a major event, and it was necessary to perform the title ceremony first to stabilize the entire celestial court. Eastern Emperor Tai, Venus Taibai said with the decree in her hands. Your subject, the Eastern Emperor Tai, will listen. Dong Huang Tai took a large step forward and bowed towards Yi Xian. Chapter 941. The Eastern Emperor Tai is conferred the title of Emperor of Demons, and he will be in charge of the demons in the three realms. Venus Tai Bai held the golden decree and announced loudly. At your command, Emperor Jun, yes, your majesty. Emperor Jun strode forward with a smile on his face. Emperor Jun is conferred the title of Marshal of Demons, and he will be in charge of the demon soldiers in the three realms. Ancestor Mingi is conferred the title of Ancestor of Blood Sea, and he will be in charge of the Netherworld. Tai Bai Jinxing held the golden decree in his hand and continued to confer titles. As time passed, the ceremony went on for a day and a night. Everyone, from the sage to be to the immortals, had their own titles. The ceremony gradually came to an end and the atmosphere in the Celestial Emperor Palace became more and more lively. However, as time passed, Yi Xian's emperor title wasn't announced. As for the Nine Heavens Profound Maiden, she was originally the Queen Mother. Today's immortal conferment ceremony should be held by the two of them, but she didn't mention their titles in the slightest. This was an extremely strange thing. Everyone had their own titles, but the Celestial Emperor and the Queen Mother did not mention them at all. This strange phenomenon naturally attracted everyone's attention. Until Venus Tai Bai put away the golden decree, Yi Xian and the Empyrean Fairy's titles were not mentioned at all. Everyone's attention was focused on Yi Xian. On the Central Emperor's throne, Yi Xian could feel everyone's doubts. He just smiled and looked around at the people in the celestial court. His voice was heard slowly. I am relieved that the three realms have been unified. The title of common ruler of the three realms is dispensable to me. I want to appoint a new emperor to rule the three realms, so I don't need this title. Wow! The entire palace was in an uproar after Yi Xian's words. Everyone stared at Yi Xian in shock. They didn't expect Yi Xian to abdicate and appoint a new monarch. They didn't dare to imagine this and couldn't accept it. Your Majesty, the position of Heavenly Emperor can only be assumed by you. Otherwise, how could anyone else convince us? Kuan Peng was the first to step forward and anxiously reported to Yi Xian. That's right. Only you are worthy of the position of Celestial Emperor. Only you can convince us. Dong Huang Tai nodded in agreement. The group of great demons behind him nodded in agreement. Celestial Emperor, the underworld has just submitted. If you really abdicate, I'm afraid the underworld will fall into chaos again. The Nether River Patriarch quickly said. As the quasi-saints spoke, the entire Heavenly Emperor Palace fell into chaos. All kinds of voices were heard rapidly. No one could accept the fact that Yi Xian had appointed a new Heavenly Emperor. Quiet. Suddenly, the Empyrean Fairy spoke gently. The clamor in the Heavenly Emperor Palace immediately subsided. However, everyone looked at Yi Xian with pleading eyes. I know what you are thinking, but I have made up my mind. Don't try to persuade me anymore. Yi Xian spoke calmly. He had already made up his mind that he wouldn't take the throne. He would choose someone else because he was only at the three tribulations of the heavenly Tao. If he held the throne for a long time, it would definitely affect his cultivation. The three realms had been united and many things were in chaos. Yi Xian was someone who couldn't stay still. He couldn't spend his time dealing with the three realms. Only by constantly strengthening himself was Yi Xian's priority. Moreover, Yi Xian didn't care about the so-called title of Heavenly Emperor. He used to want this title because he was still weak. With the title of Heavenly Emperor, it would be easier for him to do things. However, his cultivation was now comparable to that of a saint. Even if he didn't have the title of Heavenly Emperor, he would still be revered by all. A person's strength came from their own body and not from external objects. Yi Xian always understood this principle. Moreover, he still had a long way to go before he could reach the 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. He would never be complacent about his identity as the master of the three realms. No one could go against Yi Xian's will. His attitude was extremely firm. The people of the celestial court were anxious and wanted to persuade Yi Xian, but they knew that Yi Xian was a man of his words. Celestial Emperor, please be wise. The three realms have just been unified, and only you can suppress everyone with your cultivation. If a new celestial emperor were to take charge, how would the people of the three realms be convinced? Taishang Laojun vaguely reminded him. Taishang Laojun was right. He was also secretly reminding Yi Xian that the three realms had just been united. The demon race, the underworld, and the various orthodoxies of the earth immortal world were all in awe of Yi Xian. If someone else took charge of the three realms, how could these forces be convinced? Even if these forces were ignored, Yi Xian's original team would probably not agree. Kunpeng Kong Xian, Taishang Laojun, the 28 mansions of the heavenly constellations, and the 108 demon kings of the heavenly spirits and earthly fiends would not be convinced by anyone other than Yi Xian. The new heavenly emperor will become a new saint. He is fully qualified to take charge of the three realms. If anyone is not convinced, then they are not respecting me, Yi Xian said calmly. Boom! The entire heavenly emperor palace suddenly fell silent. Everyone's mind was in turmoil because of Yi Xian's words. Become a saint. It was a simple word, but it was as heavy as the sky. It was so oppressive that everyone could not breathe and their breathing became extremely heavy. Everyone knew that Yi Xian had Nua's Hongmeng immortal vapor and the five-colored divine stone. These two things could create a new heavenly Tao saint, but no one knew who Yi Xian would make the new saint. Of course, only the sage-to-be present were qualified to become a saint. East Emperor Tai and Emperor Jun of the demon race, Nether River Patriarch and Yellow Spring Patriarch of the underworld, Taishang Laojun, Kunpeng, Kong Xian, and others were the most qualified to become a saint. As for the other sage-to-be, they did not need to be delusional. Not to mention that their cultivation was not as good as those mentioned before, Yi Xian would not believe them. At this moment, East Emperor Tai and Emperor Jun clenched their fists. Nether River Patriarch's face was slightly red. Taishang Laojun and the others were also trembling. They all bowed with faint anticipation in their hearts. Because they knew that they were the most likely to be given the opportunity to become a saint, but they could not predict who Yi Xian would give the opportunity to. At this moment, the heavenly emperor palace was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. All kinds of heavy breathing rose and fell. Because everyone could feel that Yi Xian was about to announce a major event. And this event was related to becoming a saint, and this person would become the new heavenly emperor. East Emperor, Emperor Jun. When Yi Xian's voice rang out, the two demon emperors were overjoyed. They quickly stepped forward and bowed to Yi Xian. The others' expressions changed greatly, and there was great disappointment in their eyes. You two are the two demon emperors. I hope that you can assist the new heavenly emperor in governing the three realms in the future. Don't let me down. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Chapter 942. Yes. Yes. The two demonic emperors were excited at first, but when Yi Xian finished speaking, they were first stunned, then extremely disappointed, but still bowed to Yi Xian. Styx. I'm relieved to have you in charge of the underworld. In the future, you will assist the new celestial emperor. Don't let any turmoil happen in the underworld, Yi Xian said softly. Old Minister Styx, Patriarch Styx smiled bitterly and hurriedly responded respectfully. Old Lord and Kunpeng will be the mainstays of the celestial court. In the future, they will be the right and left arms of the new celestial emperor. Only then can the celestial court prosper. Yi Xian looked at Old Lord Taishang and Kunpeng, which made them look at each other and hurriedly bowed to comply, not daring to show any dissatisfaction. At this time, the entire celestial emperor palace was extremely quiet. Yi Xian called out their names one by one, seemingly to appease them, but in fact, he was secretly warning them not to be dissatisfied, which was also paving the way for the new celestial emperor. Right now, there was only one person who hadn't been named by Yi Xian, and that person was Mahamyuri Kong Xian. He was also the person who had the deepest relationship with Yi Xian, and the two of them even called each other brothers. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion. Everyone's eyes were on Kong Xian, because at this time, no one was more qualified to become a saint than Kong Xian. In terms of cultivation, Kong Xian was at the peak of the sage-to-be, and his talent was the five-colored holy light. In terms of seniority, Kong Xian was a veteran of the 33rd Celestial Court. In terms of friendship, Kong Xian and Yi Xian seemed to be monarch and vassal, but he called Yi Xian his brother. At this time, as long as one was not a fool, one could see that the new celestial emperor would definitely be Kong Xian, and Kong Xian was about to get the chance to become a saint. He would also be the new heavenly saint. However, what was strange was that Kong Xian didn't have the slightest bit of excitement or joy. Instead, he calmly stood below Yi Xian without revealing the slightest bit of emotion. Brother Kong. Celestial Emperor. Kong Xian strode out and solemnly bowed to Yi Xian. Kong Xian already knows of the Heavenly Emperor's intentions. The Heavenly Emperor can rest assured that Kong Xian will definitely assist the new emperor. If anyone is unconvinced, they must first pass through me, Kong Xian. I'm relieved with your words. Yi Xian and Kong Xian looked at each other and smiled. An image of the Immortal conferment ceremony appeared in their hearts at the same time. Before the Immortal conferring ceremony. Celestial Emperor Palace. It's him. Muttered Kong Xian's, he could not believe his ears. In the past, he has shown great kindness to me, and even protected me with his life when I was weak. I, Yi Xian, will never forget this kindness. Although I'm comparable to a saint now, he has kept a distance from me and hidden among the immortals. But although his cultivation is not high, he has always silently protected me. How can I, Yi Xian, forget his kindness? Yi Xian looked up at the sky and sighed. Without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. I hope Brother Kong can understand. Yi Xian looked back at Kong Xian. Brother Yi, you don't have to say anything. Although I, Kong Xian, also covet the position of saint, he deserves it. The new celestial emperor should be none other than him. If anyone dares to disobey him, they must go through me first, Kong Xian said solemnly. It's difficult for people to accept him as the new celestial emperor, but he has become a heavenly saint. No one dares to say anything. Moreover, as long as I, Yi Xian, am alive, who dares to disobey me, muttered Yi Xian coldly. The scene reversed and returned to reality. Kong Xian expressed his loyalty to the new celestial emperor. The entire celestial emperor palace was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone could not believe their ears. It's not Kong Xian. It's not him. How is this possible? Besides Kong Xian, who else is qualified to become a saint and the new celestial emperor? After 3 breaths of time, the entire celestial emperor palace was in an uproar. All kinds of surprised discussions could be heard. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yi Xian. They did not know who Yi Xian was going to appoint as the new celestial emperor. Silence. Kong Xian reprimanded coldly and suppressed all kinds of discussions. However, everyone was looking at Yi Xian, waiting for him to announce the new celestial emperor. Suddenly, the Empyrean fairy stood up from her phoenix throne. No one knew when, but a golden decree had appeared in her hand. At this moment, it was unfurling in her hand. Silence, silence, extreme silence. When this scene appeared in front of everyone's eyes, they all breathed carefully because they knew that the decree that the Empyrean fairy took out was to announce the new celestial emperor. Empress Siwei, receive the decree. Boom. It was as if the sky had collapsed and the earth had cracked. Just these 4 words from the Empyrean fairy stunned everyone on the spot. It was as if their souls had left their bodies. Even though the Empyrean fairy continued to read the decree in her hand, no one could hear what she was saying. The two words, Empress Ziwei, echoed in their minds. They could not recover from their shock. 10 breaths later, the Empyrean Maiden of the Nine Heavens finally finished reading the Celestial Emperor's decree. She smiled at Empress Myrtle Star, who was hidden among the immortals. How can it be him? Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. What right does a mere Daluo Jinxian have to become the new Celestial Emperor? Empress Ziwei is merely a grand heavenly immortal in the Celestial Court. There are more than 10,000 grand heavenly immortals with such cultivation. Why is it him? A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Various voices of disbelief and dissatisfaction rang out. Everyone's eyes were on Empress Ziwei. Bewilderment, indignation, unwillingness, shock, all sorts of emotions were born in everyone's eyes. Some were jealous, some were envious, but most were in disbelief. They felt as if they had fallen into a dream. At this moment, Empress Ziwei was stunned on the spot. It was as if her soul had left her body. She stood on the spot like a clay puppet and couldn't believe her ears. She couldn't recover for a long time. In the past, Yi Xian was still very weak when he first entered the Celestial Court. The Jade Emperor even wanted to kill Yi Xian. During the battle of the Celestial Court, Empress Ziwei and Yi Xian hit it off at first sight. In order to save him, she almost lost her life in the Celestial Court. She had saved Yi Xian's life countless times. During the battle of the Celestial Court, she promised the ginseng fruit to King Chujiang just to help Yi Xian survive the calamity. Yang Jian wasn't afraid of the power of Chan's school in the battle and still stood firmly with Yi Xian. It could be said that when Yi Xian was weak, if not for Empress Ziwei's help, he might have died long ago. Yi Xian wouldn't be where he was today. However, as time passed, Yi Xian's cultivation level became stronger and stronger. Empress Ziwei gradually couldn't keep up with him. She watched as Yi Xian grew day by day and finally became an existence comparable to a saint. Empress Ziwei also hid among the immortals and quietly did something that she could. How long has it been? 100,000 years, right? In Empress Ziwei's memory, she didn't seem to have spoken more than 10 words to Yi Xian in the past 100,000 years. In her heart, perhaps Yi Xian had long forgotten about her. In the past 100,000 years, Empress Ziwei was a little sad. She could no longer find the brotherly love she had with Yi Xian. However, when she saw Yi Xian grow step by step to today's level, Empress Ziwei was satisfied. This also proved that she hadn't misjudged him. Today, in this immortal conferment ceremony, everyone had been conferred a title, but he had been left out. Empress Ziwei was a little sad, but she didn't care. It was just a title. Moreover, there were now more than 10,000 Daluo Jinxian in the Celestial Court. It wasn't strange that she, a mere Ziwei, was left out. However, Empress Ziwei didn't expect that it wasn't that he was left out. It was that his title was the Celestial Emperor, and he was also the new Celestial Emperor. Yi Xian had never really forgotten him. At this moment, Empress Ziwei's eyes were a little wet and her eyes were faintly red. He wasn't happy because he had become the new Celestial Emperor, nor was he happy because he was about to obtain the position of saint. He was touched because Yi Xian had never forgotten him. The tears in his eyes were tears of joy. The kindness of a drop of water was repaid with a gushing spring. Yi Xian stood up from the emperor's throne and strode toward Empress Ziwei. There was a smile on his face, just like before. It had never changed. Big brother, you are worthy of the position of Celestial Emperor. If you hadn't helped me in the past, I wouldn't be here today. Yi Xian bowed 3 times, his voice extremely sincere. Don't forget your original intentions, only then will you succeed. These simple words were Yi Xian's creed. He had never forgotten everything that Empress Ziwei had done for him. Today was the time for him, Yi Xian, to repay her kindness. Chapter 943. Xian. A worthy younger brother. Empress Myrtle Star's eyes were red as he stared blankly at Yi Xian. He had a lot of good things to say in his heart, but he only spat out these two words when they reached his mouth. "Elder brother, please." Yi Xian smiled and pulled Emperor Ziwei toward the throne in the center. The Empyrean fairy also bowed, greeting Emperor Ziwei like Yi Xian did. "A worthy younger brother, please don't." Suddenly, before Yi Xian could push Emperor Ziwei onto the throne, Emperor Ziwei came to his senses and anxiously pushed Yi Xian away. He even bowed to Yi Xian. "Celestial Emperor, Ziwei appreciates your kindness, but I can't accept the position of Celestial Emperor. Please retract your order." Empress Myrtle Star was just too touched, so she allowed Yi Xian to pull her to the Emperor's throne. However, now that he's gradually calmed down, it's impossible for him to accept the position of Heavenly Emperor that Yi Xian bestowed upon him. The reason was simple. What did Ziwei do to deserve it? What right did he have to sit on the throne? In terms of cultivation, he was only at the second stage of the Grand Heavenly Realm. He wasn't even at the peak of the Grand Heavenly Realm. There were more than 10,000 people in the Celestial Court who were at his level of cultivation. Even a lowly Celestial Inspector might be stronger than him. In terms of merits, he didn't have any. He couldn't even compare to some of Yi Xian's monster kings. If there was anything outstanding about him, it would be that when Yi Xian was weak, he risked his life to help Yi Xian and never left him. Although Ziwei knew that with his relationship with Yi Xian, he could definitely sit in this position. However, one had to know their own limits. With just Ziwei alone, he wouldn't be able to convince anyone. If he really sat in the position of Heavenly Emperor, everyone would probably be convinced. "Elder brother, you don't have to be modest. Only you have the right to sit on the throne. If anyone dares to disagree, they can speak up." Yi Xian seemed to be talking to Empress Myrtle Star, but his eyes were looking at everyone present. This caused the expressions of the members of the Heavenly Court to change slightly, and all of them revealed forced smiles. Yi Xian's power was too terrifying and too invincible. No one dared to show the slightest dissatisfaction because no one dared to defy Yi Xian's will. This was a fact that the Celestial Court was an ironclad fact. Minister Kong Xian pays his respects to Ziwei Tiandi. Suddenly, Kong Xian waved his sleeve and bowed to Emperor Ziwei. This made the others quickly come to their senses. They followed Kong Xian's example and paid their respects to the new Celestial Emperor. Minister East Emperor Jun pays his respects to Ziwei Tiandi. Mingyi pays his respects to the Celestial Emperor. Minister pays his respects to Your Majesty. Their voices reverberated in all directions. The Celestial Court members bowed to pay their respects. No matter what they thought, Yi Xian had already designated Emperor Ziwei as the new Celestial Emperor. They had to show their allegiance. Otherwise, it would be a slap to Yi Xian's face. No one dared to do such a thing. "Elder brother, this throne is yours. Just sit down and relax." Yi Xian smiled. Without waiting for Emperor Ziwei's response, he directly pressed Emperor Ziwei onto the throne. The Celestial Court members below him cheered again. They were all chanting Ziwei's name. "A worthy younger brother. I." Without waiting for Ziwei to speak, Yi Xian secretly transmitted his voice. "Elder brother, don't worry. I have my own plans. The Celestial Emperor's throne belongs to you. Don't refuse it." Upon hearing Yi Xian's words, Emperor Ziwei secretly sighed and did not refuse. However, he felt very uncomfortable sitting on the Celestial Emperor's throne. Moreover, the cultivation of the people below him was much stronger than him. This made Ziwei feel slightly uneasy. The ascension of a new Celestial Emperor is a major event for the Celestial Court. We have to announce to the three realms that we will hold the ascension ceremony. Celestial Emperor, please choose an auspicious date. Venus Taibai bowed to Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not care much about these complicated formalities. However, Venus Taibai was right. He had given the throne to Emperor Ziwei. This was a major event for the three realms. It was impossible for Ziwei to become the celestial emperor with just a few words from him. They still had to hold the ascension ceremony and announce this matter to the three realms. Then let's set it on, report. Suddenly, before Yi Xian could set an auspicious date, a celestial general rushed into the celestial emperor palace. He looked anxious, as if something major had happened. How dare you? Venus Taibai frowned. He looked at the celestial general with great displeasure. Yi Xian was discussing the ascension of a new celestial emperor, but the celestial general just had to interrupt. Venus Taibai naturally scolded him. Please forgive me, celestial emperor. I have something to report. The celestial general's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly apologized to Yi Xian, but his expression was very anxious. This made Yi Xian frown. It's fine. What do you have to report? The demon ancestor's disciple is outside the southern heaven gate. He says he has come on the demon ancestor's orders to see you, your majesty, the celestial general quickly reported. Hiss. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of gasps came from everywhere. The entire celestial emperor palace suddenly fell silent. Clearly, the words, demon ancestor, were too heavy. Even the people present were very surprised. Celestial Emperor, the demon ancestor is the ancestor of all demons. Legend has it that he is one of the demon gods of chaos. When the world was first created, he fought the ancestor Hong Jun. Although he was defeated and fled in the end, his cultivation is shocking. Dong Huang Tai stepped forward and reported to Yi Xian. This Luo Ho created the demon world. He has been hiding there for countless years. Now that he has sent his disciple, I'm afraid he has ill intentions, Patriarch Stick said. As the two of them finished speaking, all kinds of comments were made. Clearly, the demon ancestor Luo Ho had sent his disciple to the celestial court. This made the people of the celestial court puzzled. They did not know what Luo Ho wanted to do. Of course, with the current power of the 33rd Celestial Court, no matter how strong Luo Ho was, the people of the Celestial Court did not think too much of him. Not to mention the two great arrays of heaven and earth, just Yi Xian's cultivation, which was comparable to a saint, was enough to not fear Luo Ho. Of course, no one knew that Luo Ho's real cultivation was comparable to Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu. He was definitely an extremely terrifying figure. Moreover, Luo Ho's real terror was not his cultivation, but his shrewdness and wisdom. The demon ancestor Luo Ho. Yi Xian frowned and murmured. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He looked at the celestial general and said, "Summon the demon ancestor's disciple." "Yes, your majesty." The celestial general walked away quickly. Obviously, he was going to summon the demon ancestor's disciple to the celestial emperor palace. Soon, a short time had passed. A series of footsteps came from outside the celestial emperor palace. Gu Beichen was strolling into the celestial emperor palace under the guidance of the celestial general. The demon ancestor's disciple Gu Ruochen greets Yi Tiandi. Gu Beichen was dressed in black. The scar on his face was unusually conspicuous. He greeted Yi Xian in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Sage to be. This person is actually a sage to be. Emperor Jun whispered in surprise. He looked at Gu Beichen seriously and kept examining his cultivation. The demon ancestor Luo Ho's disciple is a sage to be. I'm afraid this Luo Ho's cultivation is unfathomable, Patriarch Styx said seriously. Chapter 944. Gu. Suddenly, Fatso Huang, who had been following beside Yi Xian, took a step forward. He looked at Gu Beichen with great surprise in his eyes and was about to call out his name. However, before he could do anything, his eyes suddenly moved and he stopped in his tracks. He fell silent once again. Obviously, Fatso Huang recognized Gu Beichen at a glance. Although Gu Beichen had changed his appearance, he was extremely familiar with Gu Beichen's aura after interacting with him for so many years. Moreover, Yi Xian had placed them in various orthodoxies back then. Fatso Huang knew that Gu Beichen had entered the demonic world. It was only natural that he would become the demonic ancestor's disciple. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was calm. He looked at Gu Beichen with a calm and indifferent expression. It was as if he really did not know Gu Beichen at all. No need for formalities. Yi Xian waved his hand. Only then did Gu Beichen bow and stand up. When he saw Yi Xian, his eyes reddened slightly. However, he soon calmed down. Obviously, he knew that this was not the time to reunite. My master has written a letter for Ruochen to pass to Yi Tiandi. Gu Beichen flipped his hand and a letter appeared. Venus Taibai quickly took the letter and quickly passed it to Yi Xian. After receiving the letter, Yi Xian casually opened it and read the contents. However, when Yi Xian's gaze fell on the letter, his expression slightly froze. His brows slightly furrowed, and then he slowly closed the letter. We will decide on the date of the new emperor's ascension. Other than Fatso Huang, all of you may leave, Yi Xian said softly. Yi Xian suddenly waving everyone back naturally caused everyone to feel strange. However, no one dared to ask and they all began to leave. However, before they left, they looked at Gu Beichen with a puzzled expression. Very soon, the entire Heavenly Emperor Palace was empty. Even the Empyrean Fairy and the others had left. Only Yi Xian and the other two were left in the Heavenly Emperor Palace. Sir! When everyone had left, Gu Beichen finally couldn't control his emotions and bowed to Yi Xian. His face was filled with the joy of a long-awaited reunion. You've worked hard for the past 100,000 years. Without waiting for Gu Beichen to bow, Yi Xian hurriedly helped him up. Fatso Huang grinned and kept patting Gu Beichen's shoulder. He laughed and said, Well done, Gu Beichen. I didn't expect you to become a sage to be. I, Fatso Huang, am only a Zenith Heaven Realm Divine Immortal even with the help of your Peach of Immortality Golden Elixir. Damned Fatso, you're used to being lazy. If you cultivated seriously, you would have become a sage to be under the guidance of your sir. Gu Beichen scolded jokingly. The two of them hadn't seen each other for over 100,000 years, and now that they were reunited, they were extremely happy. As for Yi Xian, he sighed. Both of them had followed him from the human world, and it had been almost 200,000 years. Immortal cultivation had no concept of time. The sea changed into mulberry fields. At this moment, Yi Xian finally had a deep understanding of this saying. Alright, let's get down to business. Gu Beichen and Fatso Huang joked and joked for a while. Then, Gu Beichen looked at Yi Xian and said, Sir, I have something important to report to you. After Gu Beichen finished speaking, he quickly told him about the cooperation between Luoho and Nuwa. He also told him about Luoho's plot to obtain the power of People Dao. Nuwa, that bitch. She still hasn't given up on her evil intentions. It seems like she's tired of living. Fatso Huang said in a low voice. Sir, in 300 years, Nuwa will attack the three sovereigns of the human race. If she really succeeds in obtaining the power of People Dao, then Luoho will definitely invade the celestial court. I'm afraid. Gu Beichen said worriedly. Ha! A smile appeared on Yi Xian's lips. This also startled Gu Beichen and Fatso Huang. They didn't know why Yi Xian was smiling. They both looked at Yi Xian. Beichen, guess what's written in the letter that Luoho asked you to bring? Yi Xian said with a smile. Looking at Yi Xian's smile, Gu Beichen was puzzled. However, he still made a guess. This Luoho's cultivation is unfathomable. I've never been able to see through him. Furthermore, this person is extremely shrewd. I'm afraid that this letter is written to befriend you. Perhaps it's also a way for him to test you. Take a look for yourself. Yi Xian casually tossed the letter to Gu Beichen. Gu Beichen caught it and flipped through it. How can this be? Suddenly, Gu Beichen's expression froze. This was because the letter in his hand had no words at all. It was just an ordinary piece of white paper. A letter without words? What is this Luo Ho up to? When Fatso Huang saw the blank piece of paper in Gu Beichen's hand, he exclaimed in shock. Sir, could this letter be hiding something? Gu Beichen looked at Yi Xian, puzzled. Looking at Gu Beichen and Fatso Huang's puzzled expressions, the smile on Yi Xian's face gradually disappeared. His expression was slightly indifferent as he said, I've underestimated this Luo Ho. This piece of white paper has no words. He's telling me 4 words. Sir, please enlighten me. Gu Beichen asked. I know. Yi Xian whispered as he said 4 words. He also began to answer the questions in Gu Beichen's heart, as well as the meaning behind the letter. The so-called white paper was spotless. There was not a single word written on it. It was written on ordinary paper. Letter was synonymous with no. What Luo Ho wanted to express was that his mind was clear. Everything was under his control. Nothing could go against him. Luo Ho was also laying all his cards on the table for Yi Xian. Therefore, there were only 4 simple words on this blank piece of paper, I'm well aware of it. This. Hearing Yi Xian's answer, Gu Beichen's face turned slightly pale. He seemed to have vaguely understood something. His eyes were trembling at this moment. Luo Ho had long discovered your identity. He just didn't expose you. He even put in a lot of effort to nurture you and let you step into the sage-to-be. He's given me a big gift. Yi Xian laughed softly. Boom. Gu Beichen felt as if a bolt of lightning had struck his mind, and he was rooted to the spot. His mind kept replaying the scenes with Luo Ho, and a sense of shame and anger flashed across his eyes. He understood. Everything was clear now. No wonder he always felt uneasy in front of Luo Ho. No wonder Luo Ho looked at him with such an unfathomable gaze. It turned out that he already knew his true identity. How could this be? Gu Beichen muttered in a daze. This is not your fault. I underestimated Luo Ho. When I sent you to the demon world, I thought I could hide it from everyone. But I neglected one thing. This Luo Ho can open up a small world. The entire demon world is under his control. My cultivation was only Daluo Jinxian back then. With Luo Ho's cultivation, he must have sensed something. Now that I think about it, I miscalculated and exposed your identity. But this Luo Ho didn't kill you. Instead, he put in a lot of effort to nurture you. This is equivalent to establishing a small karma between us through you. Yi Xian said tirelessly. But since he knows I'm Sir's man, why did he send me to meet you? Wouldn't this expose his deal with Nuwa? Gu Beichen asked in surprise. That's why I said I underestimated Luo Ho. This person's shrewdness is only above mine, not below mine. Yi Xian whispered in a hoarse voice as his eyes flickered with a strange light. It was unknown what he was thinking. Chapter 945. Yi Xian's evaluation of Luo Ho was that he was cunning and shrewd. Yi Xian also regarded Luo Ho as a formidable enemy. That's right, a formidable enemy. Luo Ho's cultivation was indeed frightening, but what truly made Yi Xian fearful was his shrewdness. Yi Xian admitted that he was an extremely sinister person, and that he would do anything to achieve his goals. Along the way, he had used countless sinister and vicious methods to achieve his current accomplishments. And Luo Ho gave Yi Xian a feeling as if he was facing a formidable enemy. This was a feeling he had never felt before because Yi Xian could feel that Luo Ho was the same type of person as him. Both of them were extremely sinister and cunning. In order to achieve their goals, they would do things that ordinary people would not understand. Today's letter was Luo Ho's showdown with him, but it was also a method by which Luo Ho was testing him. If Yi Xian could not understand the meaning of this letter, it would prove that Yi Xian was not qualified to be Luo Ho's opponent. Fortunately, Yi Xian was a shrewd person and understood the meaning of this letter at a glance. However, he still did not understand why Luo Ho wanted him to know the secret of his collaboration with Nuwa. The power of humanity? Yi Xian muttered to himself. The smile on his face gradually became brighter, but a sinister killing intent quietly flashed across his face. No matter what Luo Ho wanted to do, the only right thing to do was to strengthen himself. Beichen, I'll have to trouble you to return to Luo Ho's side. Yi Xian pondered for a moment before looking up at Gu Beichen. Gu Beichen was stunned and said, Sir, since Luo Ho already knows my identity, I'm afraid that when I return this time, without waiting for Gu Beichen to finish speaking, Yi Xian interrupted him with a smile, since he didn't expose your identity and kill you, it means that you're still safe. If you send this letter back to him, he'll definitely keep you by his side. I also want to see what he's going to do next. Yes, sir. Gu Beichen bowed and put away the blank letter. Although he did not know what Yi Xian's motive was, he trusted Yi Xian very much. And that was enough. Go. Luo Ho should be waiting for you to return. It won't be long before you don't have to follow him. Yi Xian patted Gu Beichen's shoulder. Sir, Beichen will leave now. Gu Beichen was not a wishy-washy person. He bowed to Yi Xian and patted Fatso Huang's shoulder before transforming into a ray of light and leaving the Heavenly Emperor Palace. Sir, are you really not worried about Beichen's departure? Fatso Huang asked worriedly as he watched Gu Beichen's departing figure. As long as that Luo Ho is not stupid, he will not make things difficult for Beichen. Since Luo Ho wants to play a game with me, let's see who is better. Yi Xian said coldly. The clouds in the 9 heavens were auspicious and auspicious. Luo Ho was lying high in the clouds. His black robes were fluttering in the wind as he waved a black feather fan in his hand. He exuded a mysterious aura and gave people the impression that he was as wise as the ocean. Oh. You're back. Luo Ho opened his eyes slowly. The lazy look on his face disappeared as a demonic light flashed across his eyes. He looked into the distance. Master. Ripples appeared in the void as Gu Beichen appeared in front of Luo Ho silently. He even bowed respectfully as if nothing had happened. You're back. Not bad, not bad. Luo Ho nodded in praise. With a smile on his face, he looked at Gu Beichen and said, Then what did Yi Xian say after reading my master's letter? Yi Xian also brought a letter for you. Please take a look. As Gu Beichen spoke, he presented the letter to Luo Ho. When Luo Ho opened the letter, he was slightly stunned. Then, the smile on his face became even brighter. It was also a blank piece of paper. There was not a single word on it, but Luo Ho kept nodding his head. Not bad, not bad. Yi Tiandi is indeed Yi Tiandi. I didn't misjudge him. Luo Ho laughed out loud and burned the letter. Yi Xian also used a blank piece of paper as a reply to Luo Ho. Luo Ho and Yi Xian both knew that this was a battle of wits. The two of them were evenly matched. Moreover, Yi Xian actually asked Gu Beichen to return to his side. This was an open move. He was openly monitoring his actions. This made Luo Ho feel powerless, as if he had punched cotton. Interesting, very interesting. Ha! Luo Ho laughed out loud, as if he had encountered something extremely happy. Gu Beichen frowned slightly, but still bowed to accompany him. Since Yi Tiandi is so considerate, I, Luo Ho, will definitely befriend him. Luo Ho stopped laughing and looked at Gu Beichen with a smile. Disciple, you have done a big thing. I will definitely reward you. As Luo Ho spoke, he directly threw a black jade scroll into Gu Beichen's hand. Without waiting for Gu Beichen to ask, Luo Ho smiled and said, "This 8 techniques of Devil Sky is one of my most powerful techniques. Haven't you always wanted to obtain it? Today, I will pass this technique to you. Don't let me down." 8 techniques of Devil Sky. Gu Beichen was stunned. He never thought that Luo Ho would pass this technique to him. One had to know that he had always coveted Luo Ho's great technique. He had even seen how terrifying Luo Ho's 8 techniques of Devil Sky was. It was obvious that this was one of his trump cards. But now, he was passing it to him. Thank you, Master." Gu Beichen tried his best to calm himself down. He bowed to Luo Ho. "You and I are master and disciple. You don't have to be so polite." Luo Ho smiled slightly. He had an extraordinary aura. He called out to Gu Beichen and flew into the sky. This made Gu Beichen follow quickly. He was becoming more cautious of Luo Ho. He knew that he was Yi Xian's disciple, but he still kept him by his side. He even gave him the 8 techniques of Devil Sky that he had not imparted to him for a long time. What exactly was Luo Ho trying to do? Gu Beichen kept guessing, but he could not get an answer. He could only take one step at a time. He followed Luo Ho by his side. If Luo Ho did anything that was detrimental to Yi Xian, he would inform Yi Xian immediately. It attracted the attention of the world and shook the 3 realms. A shocking piece of news spread from the 33rd heaven's celestial court. It also attracted the attention of the 3 realms to the celestial court. 300 years later, Yi Xian would step down as celestial emperor, and the new celestial emperor would be Emperor Ziwei. 300 years later, it would be the coronation ceremony of the new celestial emperor. This piece of news spread throughout the 3 realms and caused an uproar. Everyone in the 3 realms was discussing this matter. They did not know why Yi Xian wanted to appoint a new celestial emperor. At the same time, invitations were sent out from the 33rd heaven's celestial court. They invited the orthodoxies of the 3 realms to attend the coronation ceremony of the new celestial emperor. Chapter 946. All of a sudden, all the orthodoxies began to make preparations for the new emperor's ascension ceremony 300 years later. They even went as far as to collect treasures as gifts to congratulate the new emperor. After all, Yi Xian's power was too invincible. No one in the entire 3 realms dared to oppose him. If anyone dared to slight him in the slightest, Yi Xian would definitely exterminate their entire family. Naturally, all the orthodoxies did not dare to make any mistakes in this aspect. The 33rd Celestial Court, the Celestial Emperor Palace. Emperor Ziwei and Yi Xian sat cross-legged facing each other. The primordial violet vapor and the 5-colored divine stone were placed between them. Fatso Huang stood behind Yi Xian. "A worthy younger brother, I can't accept this opportunity to ascend to sainthood," Emperor Ziwei said solemnly. This was because he knew very well that it was fine if he became the celestial emperor. However, if he also became the sage, he was afraid that there would be trouble within the family. Become a sage. It was a tempting word. Countless people coveted Yi Xian's sage position. If he became the sage, how could the other quasi-sages accept it? It would definitely cause unease in the celestial court. "Elder brother, you don't have to decline. If you don't have the cultivation of a sage, how can you become the celestial emperor? How can you lead the 33rd celestial court?" Yi Xian said solemnly. "A worthy younger brother, please take back your order. I can't become the celestial emperor. Moreover, I'm only Daoyuo Jingxian. I'm not even a quasi-sage. Even if I become the sage, it's useless," Empress Myrtle Star patiently explained. No matter what, he couldn't accept such a generous gift. "Elder brother, don't worry. I'll set your ascension ceremony 300 years later. I'll help you become a quasi-sage during this period. By then, with your quasi-sage cultivation, you can definitely become a heavenly sage." Yi Xian said with a smile. Everything was going according to his plan. However, Yi Xian did not tell Ziwei some things. In 300 years, Nuwa would attack the three sovereigns of the human race to seize the power of humanity for Luoho. Yi Xian also had his own reasons for setting the ascension ceremony 300 years later. A worthy younger brother, listen to me. This is no small matter. The Celestial Court. If. Celestial Court. Of the Celestial Court is. Ha! Yi Xian smiled. His smile was very gentle, but an aura that was as ancient as the heavens burst forth, directly enveloping the 33 layers of the heavenly court. Elder brother, did you see that? As long as I, Yi Xian, am alive, no one will dare to have any disloyalty. Moreover, no one in the Celestial Court will be a match for you if you become a Celestial Court. They will be under your rule and will not dare to say no. As Yi Xian spoke to hear, he withdrew his aura and sighed earnestly. Moreover, brother, have you ever thought about it? Only when you obtain the position of saint will I be at ease. Those heavenly saints all have great karma with me, so after you become a saint, you will naturally be of great help to me. After Yi Xian's repeated persuasion, Emperor Ziwei did not refuse. Just as Yi Xian had said, he would become a heavenly sage after becoming a celestial court sage. Only then could he truly help Yi Xian. Moreover, Emperor Ziwei was not a hypocritical person, nor was he a hypocrite. Becoming a celestial court sage was something he had always dreamed of. However, he had stubbornly refused in order to maintain the stability of the celestial court. Now that the knot in his heart had been untied, he naturally agreed. Elder brother, this is the 9 revolutions golden elixir, 3 9,000-year-old peaches of immortality and 2,000 Buddha golden elixirs. It is enough for you to step into the peak of the Daluo realm. Yi Xian directly took out various elixirs that could improve cultivation. Obviously, he wanted to push Emperor Ziwei to the peak of the Daluo realm even if he had to rely on external forces. As for stepping into the sage-to-be, it was not an elixir that could be effective. It required one's own comprehension. Yi Xian could only demonstrate his Dharma and Tao to Ziwei as a reference so that Ziwei could quickly step into the sage-to-be. On this day, the Celestial Emperor Palace rumbled and shook. Rays of Daluo immortal light shot out. This violent fluctuation spread throughout the celestial court and made everyone watch with envy. This was because everyone knew that Yi Xian was helping Empress Myrtle Star increase her cultivation and preparing for the ascension ceremony in 300 years. It was also on that day that Myrtle Star would become the new heavenly Tao saint. There were those who were envious and those who were jealous. However, with Yi Xian presiding over the celestial court, everyone had to follow his orders. No one dared to say no, let alone refute him. At the same time, in the Myriad Demons' Palace. The Myriad Demons' Palace was the place of Eastern Emperor Tai and Emperor Jun. At this moment, the 2 demon emperors were sitting cross-legged in the Myriad Demons' Palace with disappointment written all over their faces. Sigh. Sensing the Daluo aura from the Celestial Emperor Palace, Emperor Jun let out a long sigh and said, I didn't expect that Ziwei would obtain the throne and that the opportunity of sainthood would also be given to her. It's fate. We have no fate with the sainthood. Since the Celestial Emperor has chosen Ziwei, we should cultivate in peace and not envy others, Eastern Emperor Tai said with a wry smile. The 2 demon emperors were naturally disappointed that they had missed the sainthood. However, Ziwei was lucky. She had helped Yi Xian several times when Yi Xian was weak. Now that Ziwei had obtained the opportunity of sainthood, they could only accept their fate. Your Majesties, the old minister has something to say, but I don't know if it's appropriate. Suddenly, Fengbo quietly interjected from the side. A sinister look flashed across his eyes. What do you want to say? Eastern Emperor Tai frowned slightly. The old minister is indignant on behalf of your Majesties. How can that Ziwei obtain the sainthood? Even if Ziwei and Yi Tiandi were old friends, it's fine that Yi Tiandi gave her the celestial emperor's position. It's also considered repaying the kindness of the past. However, what right does Ziwei have to obtain the sainthood? Fengbo said indignantly. Shut up. How dare you talk nonsense? If it weren't for the fact that we have been monarchs for so many years, I would definitely punish you today. Dong Huangtai's expression changed drastically as he scolded coldly. Your Majesty, are you really willing to accept this? Ziwei is merely a daluo, while you are the demon emperor. Your cultivation is even at the pinnacle of the sage-to-be. If we were to talk about who is most qualified to obtain the sainthood, it would definitely be you, Your Majesty Eastern Emperor, Fengbo continued. How dare you? Do you want to die? Eastern Emperor Tai's expression was unreadable. He slammed the table angrily and stood up. Your Majesty, even if you killed the old minister, there are still some things that the old minister still wants to say. Fengbo knelt down and kowtowed. Ziwei will ascend the throne 300 years later. At this moment, Yi Tiandi must have given her the Hongmeng Immortal Qi and the 5-colored gem. As long as you seize these two treasures, you will naturally become a heavenly sage. At that time, even if Yi Tiandi knows about it, he will have no choice but to accept this fact. Temptation, naked temptation. When Fengbo made this suggestion, Eastern Emperor Tai fell silent. Emperor Jun's expression also changed rapidly. It was obvious that he was in an extreme struggle. Becoming a saint. This had always been Eastern Emperor Tai's dream. Even he himself did not believe that Eastern Emperor Tai would be willing to accept this. At this moment, Fengbo's suggestion was extremely tempting. Chapter 947. The demon's palace was too quiet. Only Dong Huangtai's heavy breathing could be heard. His eyes were burning with passion. Apparently, he was moved by Fengbo's suggestion. Your Majesty, think about it. As long as you become a saint, you can naturally become the new celestial emperor. We don't want to be enemies with Yi Tiandi. When you become a saint, what's done can't be undone. Yi Tiandi will need your help. He won't blame us. Fengbo continued to persuade. His words were getting more and more passionate. What he said was even more reasonable. Apparently, what Fengbo said made sense. If Dong Huangtai became a heavenly saint, Yi Xian wouldn't be able to say anything. Moreover, Dong Huangtai had no intention of rebelling. He would be a great help to Yi Xian. One had to know that Yi Xian had conflicts with the heavenly Dao saints, so a great battle between the saints might happen at any time. As for the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi, it was already a certainty that he would become a saint. Yi Xian wouldn't push the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi to the opposite side. How dare you? You deserve to die. Suddenly, a cold and angry rebuke was heard. Emperor Jun looked at Fengbo with a murderous look. Strands of terrifying demonic light burst out, as if he would kill Fengbo in the next moment. Your Majesty, you. Fengbo was shocked by Emperor Jun's murderous look. He didn't know why Emperor Jun wanted to kill him, nor did he know what he had done wrong. Brother, what are you doing? Dong Huangtai frowned and asked. Brother, you're silly. Di Jun let out a long sigh before glaring fiercely at Fengbo. Big brother, don't be blinded by greed. Have you forgotten what kind of temperament Yi Tiandi has? What kind of person? Dong Huangtai was stunned. In just 3 breaths, he turned pale. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. His eyes were extremely focused. Looking at Dong Huangtai's pale face, Emperor Jun heaved a long sigh and said, Big brother, Emperor Yi Tiandi is a man of his word. He is also a man of iron and blood. No matter who goes against his will, they will suffer a great calamity. Fengbo's words seem reasonable, but that's only applicable to ordinary people. Yi Tiandi can't be judged by common sense. Big brother, don't forget how that Nuwa was knocked down from her position as a saint. Could it be that big brother wants to follow in her footsteps? Dong Huang Tai broke out in a cold sweat, while Fengbo collapsed to the ground. Apparently, Emperor Jun's words had frightened him as well. Although the sage seat is good, it is not fated to be with us. If not for second brother's reminder today, I'm afraid I would have made a huge mistake. Dong Huang Tai said with a lingering fear. Your Majesty, old minister knows his mistake. Fengbo knelt down and kowtowed, trembling all over. This is the only time. If you do it again, don't blame me for disregarding our many years of friendship. Dong Huang Tai scolded coldly. Brother, Ziwei has become a saint. We must show our sincerity. We can't let Yi Tiandi see us as a hidden danger. Emperor Jun said softly. Don't worry, second brother. I was just blinded by greed. Now I've come to my senses. Moreover, without Yi Tiandi, we wouldn't be where we are today. We will never be able to repay his kindness. Dong Huang Tai said. To Shita Palace. Taisheng Laojun sat cross-legged in front of the furnace of 8 trigrams. A furnace of 9 transformations golden pills was being refined in the 3 true flames. However, Taisheng Laojun kept sighing. Apparently, he didn't pay attention to the furnace of pills. Becoming a saint is still far away. Yi Xian gave the Hongmeng immortal vapor to Ziwei. Isn't this cutting off my path to becoming a saint? Taisheng Laojun murmured to himself. There was deep resentment in his eyes. When he agreed to join the celestial court with Yi Xian, he hoped to get rid of Lao Tzu's control. Yi Xian used the heaven-destroying halberd to cut off his connection with Lao Tzu, making him a true individual. However, Taisheng Laojun had Laozi's memories, as well as Laozi's divine abilities. Apart from the 1 Qi into 3 Pure Ones technique, he could be said to know all of Laozi's spells and divine abilities. As the saying goes, standing on the shoulders of giants, Taisheng Laojun naturally wasn't willing to just become a pre-saint. He was fully qualified to become a new saint. Unfortunately, he missed the opportunity to become a saint. However, he didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. He could only blame himself. Creak. Suddenly, the sound of the palace door being pushed open could be heard. A gloomy voice sounded behind Taisheng Laojun. Laojun, as long as you agree to a condition of my master, you can become a new heavenly saint. Taisheng Laojun was shocked. His Tushita Palace was a forbidden area of the celestial court. There was a large collection of immortal pills. Other than Yi Xian who could enter and leave freely, anyone who wanted to see him had to report first. Moreover, the current 33 heavenly courts could be said to be impregnable. It was extremely difficult for outsiders to even enter the southern heavenly gate, let alone enter the Doshui Palace. However, the person who suddenly appeared behind him seemed to have entered an uninhabited place. This simply shocked Taisheng Laojun to the extreme. He turned around abruptly and saw a face that was neither familiar nor unfamiliar. It's you. Yuluo Palace. Nether River Patriarch and Yellow Spring Patriarch raised their cups and drank. Kuanpeng was fiddling with the jade scroll in his hand. Clearly, the 3 of them were having a small gathering. I didn't expect that Ziwei would become a saint. Nether River Patriarch sighed bitterly. He drank the wine in his cup in one gulp, as if to extinguish the melancholy in his heart. The Celestial Emperor wants him to become a saint. This is an irreversible fact. Just accept your fate. Yellow Spring Patriarch joked. But that Ziwei is just a little grand heavenly. If this saint's position was given to someone else, I would accept it, but he. Nether River Patriarch sighed and filled his cup again. So what if you don't accept it? Kuanpeng smiled. No one can go against Yi Tiandi's will. Since the Celestial Emperor has passed the saint's position to Ziwei, then we naturally have to follow the Celestial Emperor's will. Aren't you just asking for trouble by whining here? Humph, Kuanpeng, it's easy for you to say. I think you're the one who is most unconvinced. Nether River Patriarch was already melancholy. Kuenpeng's taunting made him unhappy, so he retorted. I'm unconvinced by Ziwei, but I'm convinced by the Celestial Emperor. I'm not like you, Nether River Patriarch. You're holding back your dissatisfaction. Isn't that a joke? Kuenpeng sneered. Bang! Nether River Patriarch slammed the table and stood up. He was already irritated, and Kuenpeng had angered him even more. At this moment, all his anger was surging, and Kuenpeng had become his venting target. Kuenpeng, how dare you taunt me? Do you believe that I won't tear off your wings? Clang! Kuenpeng smashed the wine cup on the ground. He looked at Nether River Patriarch and said coldly, others may be afraid of you, Nether River, but I don't care about you. Don't think that you can bully me just because you have the Nether Blood Sea. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.